I swear, if you ever show your face out there,
I won't. I swear.
I
Christ,
mean,
I won't.
ever,
I won't.
ever.
I won't. I promise you.
Oh.
What is like? What are we doing? Like, what is happening? What's going on, guys? Welcome to the part 2 of the member stream. So, I'm happy that you guys are here. I just thought of doing it today, in case more people, could make it. So, welcome, everybody. There's two links available. There's one in my Discord under the members channel on my server, and then there's one in the community tab. So, if you're interested, hop on in. Come on, don't be shy. And we already got a member right here, a longtime member, Matt Unbearable73. What's going on, sir? How you doing?
How's the audio, my brother?
Perfect. You sound perfect, dude.
Yeah, I found Linux is every time they upgrade it, they put some new setting in there because it's a volunteer thing.
Yeah.
And if someone insert a setting specifically for this microphone, this brand of this microphone.
What kind of mic you got?
FINE. It's a starter, kind of a starter streamer mic.
Okay.
Salty and Zach helped me get it way back, and it's been too good. But they specifically installed a volume slider that works just with this microphone.
Oh,
so now,
I see.
So now I can adjust it in software and hardware, so it works.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I ended up getting a new mic myself, but I ended up just buying the same brand I've been using. I use the Yeti. I have the Yeti kind, so I got it right here.
Yeah. Well, should I ever get big time like you, I'll
big time. I don't know what that means. One video blew up. That's actually a couple videos blew up randomly. Like videos I did 2 years ago, like when I started the channel, all of a sudden they blow up and I get all these subscribers now. It's weird. Like now the link to the past one is the current one that's blowing up. It's like a couple thousand views a day. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know how this is happening, but it just does. I don't get the algorithm.
That's how I got from like 40 to about 60. I had one video of a Plex Media Server video, which is a tech video that has like 1,000 views, and every so often I get another viewer from that. But that was a big jump for me, But it's great. I eventually will, like you're doing this more serious than I am, obviously, with regular content. So to me, it's a hobby, venting and a hobby.
Same here. Yeah. I mean, I have a full-time job, and if I have time, I mean, I'll put together a project. I mean, every video I do is a project. By the way, we got another guest. My intellectual brother from another mother. What's going on, Gadfly? Welcome back. It's part 2.
Don't let me hog the stream this time round.
No,
but, we miss you, Gadfly. We miss you.
Yeah, I can't take watching the Wheel of Time in more than like 5-minute increments. So I'm amazed at your fortitude for being able to get through to episode 7. So
well, we watch it in like 30-second increments, then talk for 10 minutes about something else. So that's how we've been doing it.
Yeah. So what are you drinking, Gadfly?
I'm going to see how far I get with the Oban Little Bay.
Some Jefferson's Ocean Aged at Sea bourbon. For me, I got I think a third of the bottle left. So there you go. This was I think this was $60. This bourbon. So put it to good use. So cheers, gentlemen.
Is that a TV or a picture behind you?
That's a TV. Okay. It's an LG OLED.
Yeah, I see some image on it or something, but it's probably your reflection.
It's my reflection. I turned it off. I was watching. I started watching. I'm on season 4 of Banshee right now.
Oh,
damn,
man.
I that's all I did. Like I was hoping to maybe put a video up this weekend. No, I started watching Banshee and I just couldn't stop. Like I watched all of season 3 and like half of season 2. It's so fucking insane. Like I miss shows like that.
You found a vein of gold. Okay, there was from when Banshee came out for that 10-year period on Cinemax.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, there's 5 or 6 action TV shows. Banshee, Warrior, which just had its season 3 5 years later. If you haven't seen Warrior yet,
I haven't seen. Steve recommended that one too.
Yeah. Strike Back, which is really 3 shows in one. The first season was Richard Armitage, who played Thorin in The Hobbit. That's why he left at the first season.
Okay.
And the second through like 6 seasons is the second best bromance in all of after Sam and Dean. This is number 2.
I need to find my notebook now. I have to write this shit down. But like freaking Banshee, their bad guys are bad, and like there's a freaking body count. Like characters I didn't expect to kick the bucket were kicking the bucket. I'm like,
I don't know where you exactly are. Did you see the fight between the American Indian girl and the assistant to the main guy?
Yes, that was. I was like, I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen. That was awesome,
amazing.
I was like, who's gonna win this? Yeah, like, I like that's what you gotta do. You have to set these characters up like that. That's how it gets interesting. Like this one big Indian dude named what's his name? Chaikin or something?
Yeah.
He terrifies me. Why? Yeah. Because they establish it. They establish what he's capable of.
And the sheriff could kick his, because what the sheriff did to that guy in the first season, remember?
Yes.
That this Banshee is the closest to a live action fighting anime they ever will get to.
It's like a freaking comic book. Like there's comic book level like villain. Like there's a fat Jabba the Hutt gangster villain dude that I'm not gonna say how he dies, but like there's like so many bad guys. There's so many storylines. Like this is what a Star Wars show should be, maybe without the hot sex and the graphic violence, but there should have a whole bunch of like plots and like the OT did, just have a bunch of villains and just have action galore and some great character moments.
It has to have 2 things, right? It has to have one, characters that you actually come to care about a little bit.
Yes.
And the other thing is you have to have credible consequences.
Yes.
Happen.
Well, I'll slight spoiler for the beginning of the series. It's the only way to explain it. It's hard to it's a bit of a suspension of disbelief thing. That's how the main character becomes the sheriff and stays that way for so long, as if no one would check a law enforcement database at some point. But by the end of that season, you don't care. You just don't care.
Nope.
Like it's like do you ever see Yojimbo or Hang 'em High?
Oh yeah, I've seen I've seen him.
Yeah, you know how in Yojimbo, Hang 'em High, he just shows up in the town and everyone's he's a default authority figure. And you never like why are they just accepting that this guy is like the number one guy in town? And he is, but it's sold very well by the showrunner. Like maybe because of the villain. Like I didn't even expect the villain of that show to be as awesome as he was.
Yeah.
And maybe because he was as awesome as he was, you need a hero to be as awesome as he was, Well,
it's the only way to explain it. If the actor is able to carry a certain gravitas, right? Like you mentioned Yojimbo there, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like the reason why Yojimbo works in so many different ways is because the actor has so much gravitas. That just his on-screen presence carries everything, and so I don't know Banshee. I probably won't watch it.
Anthony Starr is the star of Banshee. He plays Homelander in The Boys, and you feel his presence from the very, very beginning. The very first scene you see him, he's walking out of the prison, and he walks out of the prison. He's free from who knows what happens. And he is just like there's this awesome music playing. He steals a car. He plows a woman in the back of a bar. And then then there's a point where he fights people and he's really good at what he does. You're just like, fuck, this dude's they perfectly established this guy.
Yeah. So if the actor is capable of giving that type of sense to the character, it's one of those things where the suspension of disbelief is you're capable of suspending more and more things because the actors are capable of dragging you into the events, into the story, right?
And I should mention, by the way, the dudes who created Banshee created Warrior.
Oh, okay. Who created Banshee? I haven't researched the production.
I know the one guy, Jonathan something, who did Warrior. That's how I remember him. But there's a couple guys on Banshee. I don't know if they all went to Warrior. Warrior is based on a project Bruce Lee wanted to do. Obviously, didn't go anywhere when he died. And then his wife, years later, pushed for some of his stuff to be made. And Troper, who made Banshee, picked up Warrior.
Mm-hmm. Damn, I mean, like it's like you watch. I'm watching Banshee, and it's like everything they show is against what is what they call modern day or current day or whatever. So, like I mean, like you said, it's all male gaze. Awesomeness. And there's violence, and there's,
the whole like So we complain a lot with the woke stuff about how they make females unrealistically powerful, so to speak.
Yeah.
So but you have to have if you have an explanation for it, like the Black Widow knows superpower martial arts. That's why she can do what she does. So we accept that, right?
Or what's her name, Nola in Banshee.
Well, everyone is superpowered in Banshee. There's no by the end of that first season, you accept these aren't like real people. You know what I mean? Like everyone, like down the street, the old lady, she must know martial arts. It's like a kung fu film. You know what I mean? Like this is one of those. I was watching The Man with the Iron Fist, which was a modern, which is a kung fu film for you, but was made by John Singleton and the Method Man. It's really kind of good. And in Jungle Village, everyone knew martial arts, even the little kids.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Which is a trope from the martial arts movie.
So there has to be rules. They have to establish rules or something that will allow once again the viewer to suspend disbelief. By the way, we got another guest. Welcome for the first time on their Porial channel, Mark. How are you, Mark?
Good. Just sitting here.
Well, that's fine. That's a noble thing to do. So I'm glad. Thanks for joining.
He has a very Banshee-like haircut.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you fit right in, man.
So what's up, Mark? How you doing? What are you up to?
I just got done playing Starfield on my Xbox, and
how's Starfield?
I like it mostly. I'm not good at describing things, but it gets a little repetitive.
Okay.
You pretty much know if you see abandoned anything, there's going to be pirates there, and but visually it's pretty cool, and it's fun enough that I'm still playing.
Okay, that's good. Is it anything like Fallout?
I've only played one Fallout game, so Fallout 4.
Okay, so is it first person shooter type of deal?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you do some other stuff, but it's pretty much you go in and you shoot and hide and run, and I make it sound really boring.
No, don't worry. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. It's I mean, there was all that controversy behind Starfield. But the thing is, I just haven't played a whole lot of games lately. Like, heck, I haven't played anything in like 3 months. Like, I don't know, maybe Tears of the Kingdom really killed my motivation to play video games. I don't know. Games are just getting too big, and they take too much time. It's I don't know. I've been bitching about this for a long time. So gentlemen, are you all looking forward to the finale of Wheel of Time season 2? Isn't it the best show ever? Like, I made a video about how great that show is.
I'm looking forward to everybody engaging with it, but I'm not going to watch it myself.
You're not, you haven't watched any of it, right?
No. He abandoned us. Over on the Questioners, we usually analyze it every week, and he's been one of our guys with other stuff. But he said, "Wheel of Prime, I'm out."
I can't do it. I can't do Wheel of Prime.
I I've been watching it on the Discord with everybody, and like I said, I forget what I watched on it like 10 minutes after it's done.
Oh,
It's
by the way, Nerd Portal, have you guys? I know Gadfly had, but you guys both read. You're still reading Nerd Portal. How about you, Mark?
I've read the whole series many
So
times.
you just gotta be careful with spoilers for Nerd Portal. What book you up to?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Mark knows. Mark knows. He's good.
Yeah.
He's good. I am on chapter 6 of the Shadow Rising right now. That's the one where they're questioning, or they're hanging out with Moraine, and they're asking Moraine stuff, and I don't know. I'm just not as, I don't know why. I'm going to be honest. I am not as interested in the magic system with Wheel of Time. I don't know what it is. I just don't, when maybe it's because I haven't really read a fantasy series that has a magic system, or at least a defined magic system. Like, I've only read Song of Ice and Fire, and I've read Lord of the Rings. And and both of those are very vague. That's kind of how I like it.
Well, they're contrary to what people think about Lord of the Rings, there's not a lot of magic in it.
True, that too. So I mean, like I had my Chilporial with Feanor. I was asking him that. He's just like, there's just like random like abilities. Like Sauron has some random abilities.
But that's not magic.
Yeah, that's the thing with Lord of the Rings. It's like,
or Gandalf.
The abilities
that's
of
not magic. There's
not
no
magic.
That's
magic, what people would call magic, aside
Well, there
from a
is some of
small
that,
amount
like-
of things.
like
So
the
what is magic then? Because I'm not following.
Well, Sauron has necromancers and sorcerers.
Mhm.
Like so, if a human could do something, there's two ways a human can get power in Tolkien. Okay, so
Yeah.
Tolkien has the seen and the unseen world. Humans have not say human, mortal men have no access to the unseen world unless they're given an artifact, or they're taught by, like, imbued in them by someone like an elf or
Yeah.
one of the Maiar, right?
Mhm.
But there are ways through ritual to access power, like with necromancy and things like that.
Yeah.
So Sauron has a bunch of necromancers,
Yeah.
things like that. So, but it's very weak in terms of effect in Tolkien. You know,
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Tolkien's magic is very much like the magic of the real world, where and this is something that I study, right? So like I've read magical grimoires where it's like you perform a particular ritual with the particular astral significance going on, and on the particular objects and stones, and it allows you to experience something that you otherwise wouldn't experience. But for things like elves and the Maiar and the Valar and all that stuff, it's just part of their innate natural existence that they can exert their will on the environment around them.
Yeah, like example, Gandalf reads Frodo's mind when he wakes up in Rivendell, right? That's how he finds all this stuff out.
Mhm.
That's a power of angels in Catholicism. That's why the Maiar and Valar can do that. They can
Oh,
read
I
people
see.
like a book, you know?
I mean, there was that point at the end of Fellowship where he hears somebody calling him a fool, where Frodo's up on the mountain, and he hears someone saying, "Hey, you fool, get down," or something like that. And we find out that it was Gandalf, and that was the earliest point where we're like, maybe Gandalf's alive. And I actually really loved that. Really thought that was cool reading that for the first time. And everything. So, but yeah, okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to read this super chat. Admiral Teague for $2. Here's the 3,000 more. Thank you, Admiral T, sir. Everybody, definitely check out Admiral Teague's channel. He does a series of streams called Saving Star Trek, and they are very compelling. And him and his panel know their shit. Like they know more than I do about Star Trek. Goal. It is, and it's just
I just caught it. You're knitting. What are you knitting, Mark?
Oh, cardigan.
Wow, that's cool. My grandma used to crochet. I can't do it because I have the arthritis, but I would like to. You know, my aunt did needlepoint. My mom did crochet and knitting. It's a pretty cool thing to be able to make your own stuff like that.
Yeah, I've done like 6 sweaters. I don't know how many shawls, hats. This is actually one of my favorites.
So we got Trip lurking. Join us, Trip. You know, you can join us if you want to. If you're not busy. It says Mark's distracting me. It's like watching someone with a fidget spinner. Yeah.
I have a hard time like just sitting. I'm either reading or knitting or I like just sitting. I can't do it. I get kind of
So by the way, I'm not alone. You know who's with me streaming? I forgot what this figurine's from. I've had this for years. This is little Locutus, little mini Locutus, like this big. So there you go. So I usually keep these little figurines at work. I have a Doc Brown version of this too. So it's one of those things where you buy a package and you don't know what's in it, and then when you open it, it's one of these. So but yeah, so that's my little Locutus right here. So just keeping this on hand right here. And so yeah, so stuff for the channel. So is there anything you guys think I should cover in the future? I mean, I have some plans for stuff, but I'm open to ideas.
What do you like? I mean, obviously, like Star Trek, we will love that.
I've done Nintendo retrospectives. I've done movie retrospectives. I recommended the Legend of the Galactic Heroes anime. So I mean, I'm into a whole bunch of shit.
Well, you can always do something about Armored Trooper Votons because that needs a little bit more exposure.
I've seen Armored Trooper Votons. I actually saw the entire thing, the entire franchise. It's not just one show; it's like multiple shows. The first show came out in the early '80s. The first 52 episode series came out in the early 80s. It was 4 arcs initially. And then Chirrut, and I loved Chirrut. Chirrut is like the perfect, like he's like the stone-faced stoic protagonist.
Yeah.
And he's basically on the run. He's like a super soldier and everything. And
super soldier on the run from the first episode opens with his group of mech pilots getting ambushed by somebody in a recovery operation, and he's the only one that survives.
And he sees something he shouldn't have seen, and then they question him, and then he escapes because of his superior skill. And it's a very 80s looking sci-fi. Like the first arc is very cyberpunk
looking, right? Like it's because it's on the cusp of 70s and 80s, so it's like, to me it's still 70s in aesthetics. But the mechs in it are fantastic. I love them.
Oh yeah, they're smaller. They're more, actually, I think they're even more they're like a practical than even Gundam. Tank. And Gundam is known. I mean, Gundam started the whole what they call the real robot genre. So like in the 70s, they had all these super robots, which are basically these magical, robots that these young kids pilot, and then all they have to do is scream the name of the attack, and then the attack happens. And
Mazinger or something like that.
Mazinger Z, Getter Robo, Yusha Raiden.
Well, the earliest one, Gigantor, man, from the 60s.
Gigantor. That's or Tetsujin 28, which is the Japanese name.
Yep.
Yeah,
I got a suggestion for you there. Since you love Banshee, and since they're about to make a horrible anime remake of it, I'm guessing, go watch the original Fist of the North Star.
I've seen it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I actually own it. I have it on Blu-ray. There was a series 1, and then there was series 2, which was I think only 30 episodes. So the first series was like 100 episodes, and then it continues into series 2 where they age up the kids, and then and that covers, like, they go to this island, they find out, oh, I have a twin brother, and my brothers have a twin brother. It was a weird final season.
Stories too, like that. When you add up all the side stories, there's hundreds of episodes around of like Fist of the Blue Star South, and
I mean, you had all the practitioners of the main martial art in that show is Hokuto Shinken.
Yeah.
And I think the rival martial art is Nanto Seiken, and there's different practitioners of Nanto Seiken throughout the show. And I think the best one was the one where they deal with the strongest practitioner of Nanto Seiken. He has like his own little empire, and he basically enslaves everybody into building himself a ziggurat. And it was insane because he, in his case, so with Fist of the North Star, the practitioner of Hokuto Shinken, it's probably the most dangerous martial art. Like, like any really quick punch or even finger jabs in particular places, pressure points, will cause the victim to victim's
Implode,
upper body to
explode.
explode. Yeah. But with this particular Nato Seiken practitioner, I believe his name was Souther. Souther, his heart was on the other side of his body, so the pattern that he doesn't work on him, and that's why he gets defeated initially and everything.
Well, that plus Ken wasn't the full heir yet because his brother was still alive and he didn't know that. Spoilers, but
yeah,
there's a rule. There's a rule for the Fists of the North Star. There can only be one of them.
yeah, that's why his older brother never challenged Souther because I mean. But I thought that was a great. That was like you're like shit. He's threatening to kill everybody, and you're just like, oh, like what? You can't. It's like watching Banshee. You can't get your eyes off the screen. That's how good it was.
Or when he learns what is it? Genko Koken, the ability to control yourself at a subcellular level, and all sorts of crazy. Like if you know Hotinko, I can't pronounce it. The Fist of
Shinken.
If you know the Fist of the Star, say it in English.
Yeah.
You have the ability to master any martial art if someone uses it against you for a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hack's ability. So he's fighting a dude who he can't beat with his pressure points because the dude has mastered martial arts to allow him to control his and other people's cells at a subcellular level. But then Ken masters it by fighting him.
Yeah.
And that allows him to beat some other dude later down the line.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I mean, like I think it was on. I think I watched the entire thing on YouTube. But it was, I think, right after I graduated college, 2009, 2010. The whole thing was separate. Each episode was divided into 3 parts. It was all on YouTube. This was when YouTube only allowed like videos up to 9 minutes and 59 or 59 seconds. So each episode was basically in 3 parts, and I matched someone he had completely uploaded. Watched it for free, and it was awesome. Like I couldn't stop watching it. It was an episode turner after episode turner after episode turner. So
it had to be 83 or 84. Like, so I was like 10 or 12. What 83 would have been 10, and the anime had seen to that point where like Macross or Robotech, Macross wasn't there yet. Astro Boy, Speed Racer, Battle of the Planets, and all that, and then on one of those UHF channels, like 704 on your little TV now, if you all remember that, I'm like 12. I'm like, what is that? What's all the way up here? If I turn both dials, and I found some anime on like a PBS channel that was fuzzy. I couldn't even get the whole thing. Yeah, they would show anime after midnight till like 3 a.m. as a filler. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I saw whoever was running the channel overnight probably just loading their anime VHS and broadcasting, let anyone know the better, But
yeah.
Otherwise, it would have just been over and over again, like the PBS news report. But I was like, "What is this?" I saw dudes fighting with finger pokes. I was like,
"Yeah." I saw Battle of the Planets or Gatchaman. I saw Gatchaman. Well, that's another great series.
Like Gatchaman is the Japanese original. Then the 2 American adaptations is Battle of the Planets and G-Force. And there's a difference. There's translation differences.
They added like a robot in Battle of the Planets, I believe.
Yeah, to be a narrator for some of the stuff they took out because they added out a bunch of violence, basically.
Yeah,
and they edited out the fact that what did they call her? The leader of the enemy was
the transvestite.
Zeist.
It had the main villain. Well, not the main villain, but the one that was in charge of the operations of Galactor. Bert Kotz is the villain's name. Yeah. He could turn into a woman. He could go from being a man to a woman to a man to a woman to a woman to a man. So you didn't know who he would turn out to be. Like he was always in disguise, and of course, he lasted all the way to the very end. So almost every episode where he made an appearance, he always got away and everything because he's a bad guy. I mean, come on. He who lives that runs away lives to
Your show is only as good as the ultimate villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ultimate villain was basically was an alien. Was an alien that basically just wanted to take over Earth, and it kidnapped people and changed them. I mean,
that reminds me of the Parasite anime.
Yeah, I've seen Parasite. That's another good one. That's a very body snatchers ish type of anime.
I like the manga. I read the first 2 volumes of it. Much better than the anime. I'll say that much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
yeah, people are coming in. Just if you want to join us, there's the link in my in my community tab on my channel, and there's also a link in my Discord under members. So I have everybody tagged. So if you don't see it, I mean,
and come on in so I don't accidentally hog the whole thing again.
Yeah,
you didn't hog the whole thing. You didn't hog the whole thing, Gadfly. You're just being hard on yourself.
But
Me, I hogged everything.
Another great underrated anime, you know, from the era of the big three of Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece.
Yeah.
Hajime no Ippo. It's a boxing anime.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. The characters are great. The storyline is great. The boxing is it's a little ridiculous, but it's not like what is it? Something Joe.
Tomorrow Joe.
Yeah. It's not as ridiculous as like that.
I saw the second. So they only had the second series, the second Tomorrow Show Joe, which I think was like the final part of the story and everything. It was sad. It was a very sad one. It was a very sad anime series, but it was very. I mean, it felt like I was watching Rocky to a point. It came out before Rocky, I believe. The Tomorrow Joe. Hajime no Ippo is another one I've heard nothing but good things about too. So I haven't seen that one.
The premise is, you know, a very hardworking boy who's kind of bullied in school, runs into a professional boxer who invites him into the gym, and he falls in love with boxing, and so he develops a community around him, a bunch of good friendships, intimate friendships with the people around him, and you know it's very heartwarming in a lot of ways.
I love those type of shows. I'm not a big sports guy, but shit, I love that shit.
Okay. So that's one worth checking out, and for everybody in the chat to check out.
Yeah, I just picked up a bunch of 80s anime. I remember. I'm going to check if my nostalgia is as good as my hope, as it were. Bubblegum Crisis, Megazone 2-3, Gunbuster. A couple others in there.
It's called Gunbuster for a reason. Buster.
Yeah, I know. You know. Well, if you want pure fan service, watch High School of the Dead.
I have not seen High School of the Dead. I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Was it Tenjo Tenge?
Yeah,
that's another one that's lots and lots of fan service.
What was that one about? Tenjo Tenge.
It's fantastical martial arts high school where all the students are like crazy martial artists, and yeah. So
and there's bad guys. Like
there's one bit. It's in a flashback series, but where a guy gets into a fight with his buddy, and his buddy goes crazy and stabbing him with a sword and stuff. And the guy Shin with the sword puts the sword away, and so the guy who's all bloodied and legged punches the car that he's leaning against, that sends him flying into the air to punch Shin, and starts beating up the guy again. So it's lots of ridiculous stuff. I think that also happens after he gets hit by a car, and the car backs up to run into him again, and he punches the car when it's driving full speed and knocks it up over the fence. So it's
what era was this? A 90s? Was this a 90s anime?
Yeah, 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, okay. I see.
So lots of ridiculous stuff, lots of fun stuff. I'm not particularly fond of the overly lewd stuff myself, but it has stuff that's not overly lewd in it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, but next anime video I'm gonna do, and apparently this one, I mean, like, it performed much better than I ever thought it would. The Legend of Galactic Heroes one really, like, I already have 2.7K views, and it's got 250 something likes. That's way more than I usually get. So
that has a huge following. That anime. Some anime, like, obviously there's the big ones like Naruto or Bleach, where they have gigantic followings. Yes. But then there's some anime that have like a cult following that will,
the LGA, LOGH is definitely one of those shows that has more of a. And the thing is, I mean, my friend who always follows fan subs, that one just got fan subbed back as early as 2008, and that's basically how I first saw it. My friend told me about it. I watched it, and I was like, "Shit, this is pretty freaking good." Like this is, it doesn't. It felt more like watching Star Wars than like Gundam or anything like that, but it still has all that, has that intrigue, that palace intrigue. It still has, all the strategic and tactics of, space fleet battles, and heck, you even have dogfights. There's dogfights, and there's a freaking fortress that resembles the Death Star, and their cannons called the Thor's hammer and everything. So, I mean, it's basically Romance of the Three Kingdoms meets. People say Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a false equivalence in my opinion. It's more like Romance of the Three Kingdoms meets I, Claudius, at least on the Empire side. There's also the Free Planet Alliance, which is more of a modern, setting, more of a modern, futuristic city setting and all that.
Yeah. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a very, very interesting document.
I know it's like a 15th, isn't it like a 15th or 16th century? I was reading up on it today. It was one of the 4 great Chinese
but it's
novels of all time.
It's also based on the record of the Three Kingdoms, which is a historical document from centuries earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so it injects a lot more romanticized view of history into it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's something I they made video games based on it. I mean, they've made anime based off of romance. So well, I mean, at one point, I just want I'll just try to I'm sure there's probably a manga or a comic based off of it. I kind of want
Ravages of Time.
Ravages of Time.
Yeah,
okay.
There's probably more than one manga.
It's still being run, but I say this one particularly because the art in it is gorgeous.
Oh wow!
It's fantastic art, but there are ones that are more complete and more narrowly focused. They tend to focus on Liu Bei, and Guan Yu and Zhang Fei more than the other characters. But like it's the Three Kingdoms for a reason, right? There's 3 factions.
Yeah.
And what the Ravages of Time does is it spends a lot of time on everything. So when you look at the record and the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it doesn't get to the point of the Three Kingdoms right away.
Yeah.
It goes through a period where you have the White Turban Rebellion.
Yeah.
And then you get the overthrowing of the palace eunuchs and the installation of Dong Zhuo.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the coalition to overthrow Dong Zhuo. And then after that, you get all these different warlords rising up. So you have Yuan Shao and his brother Yuan Shu bringing their kingdoms up into power. And then you have people like they do some horrific shit. There's one fellow, Gong Sung Zan, who his city gets besieged by Yuan Shao to the point where everybody's starving, and so he kills his kids to stop them from having the horrific death. And then Yuan Shao lifts the siege after that. When they've lost, there's no way they're overcoming, but he lifts the siege after the guy kills his kids to stop them from starving to death.
Mm-hmm. So
he obviously kills himself for what he did, and then Yuan Shao comes in and takes over everything. So like,
oh shit!
But it's crazy stuff when you actually go through the whole stuff with all the different characters and all the different factions that rise up. There's these different bandit factions that rise up and start playing a role in the politics of the world because they get so powerful because of the completely destabilized system. It ends up being pretty pretty crazy. But eventually, it gets to the point where you have the three dominant powers: Wei, Wu, and Shu. And then the crazy thing is that there is no resolution. At the end of it, there's still the three kingdoms, and they're still at war with each other, and they've been at war with each other for like decades. At the end of the document.
Okay. I'm not. I mean, I'll have to familiarize myself with that story because I know it's one of the classics. And it's influenced a lot of the stuff I like. So I definitely can't wait. I mean, I don't know nearly as much about China as I should. We I don't know, Chicago Public Schools. What can I say? So, but like I definitely like after hanging out with Feanor on Friday, I want to watch some Wuja. I want to watch some Wuja films. I'm probably gonna try and watch Hero because Hero's probably the one that he liked the most. So that's the first one.
That was okay. Check out. Go back to the 70s. That's the best era of Hong Kong action film.
Okay, I saw the I saw a few Jackie Chan
Hong Kong stuff though, isn't it? Isn't that what Feanor was saying? Like the Wuxia has there's specific
Wuxia's more like Wuxia's more
to it.
Yeah, so Wuxia's more period piece,
Well, it's like a subgenre of like you would like the Hong Kong film industry is what we call the Hong Kong action movie, and and there was a subset of them that made all sorts of like mythology based stuff or historical stuff.
Well, was it the Hong Kong Opera House? That's what it was called at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, they all those guys like people think like Jackie Chan or Sammo Hung and the other guy the third guy. They eventually learned martial arts. No. There's three guys. Right? Bruce Lee is different. Like Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and their friend. Those three did a bunch of movies together, like over 50 or something like that.
They were all part of Bruce Lee's.
Well, those three were trained in the opera house in opera theatrics and all that.
Yeah, well, whereas Bruce Lee was too.
Well, to an extent, but his path took him through gang violence and USA for to save his life and all sorts of complicated. Whereas those three guys just went straight into the movies
Bruce Lee was like he was part of that, right? Like he did tango dance. He won like the Hong Kong tango.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying the third guy I'm talking about is not Bruce Lee. There's three guys. I can never remember his name. It's Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan, and one other dude. And those three guys, if you see them, like you see Jackie Chan films from like the 70s.
They're in everything.
Yeah, all three of them are all over the place.
So I love. I was watching. I watched a few Jackie Chan films. The choreography and the Jackie, and especially the one-on-one fights in Jackie Chan films are like unmatched. Like Bruce Lee, I love Bruce Lee, but Bruce Lee he just rips through like so many grunts, like it's ridiculous. Like I love Enter the Dragon. It's a classic. It's something that my dad showed me. It was on Channel 9 WGN quite a bit in Chicago, and I loved it. I loved the movie, but the thing is, it was everything. I felt bad for the bad guys because Bruce Lee was like super OP in that movie. Like I don't think anyone really got anything on him. I mean, maybe he got a few scratches from Mr. Han, the villain, the James Bond-like villain, because they had to they basically copied James Bond and for Enter the Dragon. And Mr. Han is basically Dr. No, like he just screw on like a claw or screw on something, and that's him. Just one of the Dr. No with martial arts.
One of the seminal influences of Fish with No Star was Bruce Lee's portrayal of the over the top hero. I mean, that's a trope. That's a trope, of that particular subset of the Hong Kong.
That's why. What's his name? Ryu, right? It's Ryu, or is it Rio? But anyways, that's why he always goes.
Kenshiro.
Kenshiro.
There's
Kenshiro.
A whole.
Who am I thinking of then?
About 25 films. They're called the Venom Brothers films. The biggest one is the Five Deadly Venoms or the Five Venoms, depending on your translation of it. Those 7 actors and those 2 directors. The Shaw Brothers group. If you ever heard my alert go off, it's a Shaw Brothers sound, and they did like the 7 Deadly Venoms, Return of the 7 Deadly Venoms, The Man with the Golden Arms, a whole bunch of films. These same actors, they got so famous for that one movie, they just kept doing the same, like same type of characters. So if you want to watch those, then there's the Gordon Liu films. I think I told someone the eight diagram pole fighter. Which is just like I'm messing the title up. eight something pole, eight trigram pole fighter. That's his best film like ever, you know. And then they had the one thing that I always love about these martial arts movies from for decades is you never know what's a sequel to what. Like they can make a movie in 78 and in 84, oh, this is a sequel to that movie. Like, and none of the same actor, just it's a sequel.
Well, because a lot of it was just, this is another story in that person's life, right? Like it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily anything to do with a timeline of events, right?
Oh yeah. Well, that's Wong Fei Hung. The character, he's such a legendary character from like the 19th century when China was opening up to the West. He had more films made about him than any other character. Over 100 as of 2010.
But that reminds me of the Lone Wolf and Cub movies.
Oh God.
Because aside from the first and the last one, the rest of them are pretty much interchangeable. They're just events that happen in that time span. But they were crazy cool movies too.
Yeah, I finally got my hands on them about a year ago. I still haven't watched all of them yet. I had the series and the movies.
Yeah.
You know, I still haven't been able to get the original manga though. That's something
similar to Zatoichi, Blind Swordsman. That's another great series. Once again, everything is just there's very few films that are supposed to specifically come after other ones. It's just events on the guy's life.
Yep.
And those are great. It's nice.
Is that the TV show or the movies?
It's the movies. I don't know. I don't know if the TV shows ever came out on Blu-ray. I saw the final episode of the TV show just to get an idea of how it ends. Even though I saw the manga scan. I know exactly how it ends. It's back in the time when, if you live by the sword,
you die by the sword.
You die by the sword. It's basically what I forget I forget the name of the manga writer who created the show, but that was his understanding. So, by the way, that yellow box that you see right where my finger is, that's the Bruce Lee collection, also by Criterion. So, I love. I think the Chinese Connection was awesome, or Fist of Fury, I think is what it was called. It was ridiculous. Like the big boss is called Fist of Fury here, and the Chinese Connection here is actually called Fist of Fury, and then Return of the Dragon here is called Way of the Dragon, and it's just
Chinese Connection where he punches the dude through the wall.
I think so. Yeah, that's the one with that's one that takes place. That's the one with there's one point where he's outside the gate and it says because I think it was under Japanese rule or something.
Yeah,
it says no Chinese allowed in the park or something, and then he kicks the sign and everything. Yeah, it's the Chinese Connection is the one where he gets spoiler, he gets executed in the end.
Yeah,
I mean you don't see it because he goes like that and it freeze frames and all that, but you know.
Well, I was a little kid when I saw that, and I was like, Bruce Lee punching a dude through the wall has stuck with me 40 years later, man.
It was the one where he takes on the entire the Japanese school, like the dude, dude with the
they insulted
samurai
his
sword.
Master and no one else would defend his dead master. So he's like, he comes back from his school he's going to, and he's like, "What? None of you went over there to defend our master?" And he goes and just lays waste to the whole school. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't kill anyone. He just proves he's dominant. You know what I mean?
He literally in that movie, he fights the master of that bad school. You know, he kicks the guy's trying to get him with the sword, with the katana, I believe. Yeah. He kicks the katana out of the guy's hand, hits him in the face while the sword is up in the air, and it just lands directly into his back, it impales him. Yeah. I was like, And then in Big Boss or Fist of Fury, he literally kicks. He does a high drop. He does like a big a midair kick, kicks the knife into the bad guy, and it kills him. I'm like, 1970s. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
It was the one where he worked in the ice factory in the movie.
That was the one. Yeah, that was the one with the ice factory. Yeah.
So if you Google around for it, there's an interview by the director when he was still alive, and he was like, and so he says, no one. A lot of people in Hong Kong didn't know Bruce could actually fight.
Yeah.
So people would constantly walk up to my set and challenge Bruce Lee to fights. So we actually filmed some of them. You'll see little bits of them in some of the big fight scenes. And he said one day we were filming with the ice scene, and these 7 gangsters walked up and said we're going to kill you. And he said Bruce Lee just wiped the floor with them and made them carry the ice back to set the set up.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny was in that movie, in Big Boss or Fist of Fury, there was another star of the movie that was pretty much doing all the fighting. And Bruce Lee was just we don't actually see Bruce Lee fight until like maybe halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much. And then once he starts fighting, that's pretty much when he takes over. Because I don't think the director was sure if he could, hold an audience. Well, he did.
By the way,
so
speaking of Enter the Dragon and Return of the Dragon and Fist of Fury and all that, compare and contrast. Remember how they filmed the fights where when they would show you the fighter's face direct on with the camera as if the other fighter was looking at him and you get proper facial expression? Compare and contrast that with the nonsense we're stealing in Wheel of Prime. Like
you can't see anything in Wheel of Prime or in modern shows. It's all cut.
Well, when they show like the facial expression of the characters fighting, it's at some weird angle, like man.
Yeah,
so much
I blame a lot of the animated stuff that the writers clearly are influenced by.
Not the good animated stuff.
No, well, it's the I've gone on about this before, but it's the rule of cool, taken to the extreme of we're just going to do this thing because it's cool, and we don't care how it fits into anything else, and so it always ends up coming off as like pretty stupid and cringe. Like with
where I first heard a filmmaker say that? J.J. Abrams.
Well, I hate to throw stones, but look, I like the Star Wars. I love the OT and Rogue One. I like the prequel trilogy, but I hate to throw stones. But George Lucas was a little bit of rule of cool with some of the last. I mean, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher will tell you they had to redo the dialogue on the fly at times because it was just hard to say something to Leia, and
there's a difference between accepting that having something that is cool and neat is good. Boba Fett is literally just rule of cool, but it's not at the expense of everything else. They're not making the cool thing another cool thing and another cool thing and then trying to find a way to tie it all together.
I'll totally agree there. I'm just saying
the action sequence are a perfect example of that in the modern shows where they're like, let's have this cool thing like Galadriel flying off of somebody's sword to attack the troll, or the innumerable flippy kicks in Wheel of Prime, right? Like they're like, this is such a cool thing, but they don't have the understanding of fight choreography, and they don't have the people
need lighting too
pulling off the fight choreography, so they end up having these little blips surrounded by garbage that is just, how do we resolve this now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the flippy kicks worse in Wheel of Prime is they're not even like good depictions of that style of fighting. Like you can get a wuxia film or whatever that has good aerial wire work, or what's the example?
I think that part of that is the arrogance of the actors who all insist that they portray the character all the time, and so they don't want a body double in there. But the actors don't have the skill sets to develop to do all that stuff.
That is clearly what's going on with Ahsoka. Anyone who's watched it, the little girl who played Ahsoka, she must have watched the show because she got it 100%.
Yes, she did. I did not like. I'll be honest. The show just comes off either there's fan service, or it's just once again it's just bad dialogue and
it's horrible writing.
It's not very. It's not. It just doesn't. I mean, I've watched. Last episode I watched was episode 5. I might finish the series, but like honestly, like even though Rebels was a big step down from the Clone Wars. The George Lucas Clone Wars, which in itself was a step down from the Gennady Tartakovsky Clone Wars. This is just even further. There's like no bottom for how how shitty
Well, it's
Disney Star Wars is.
They've
it's
got a shovel and they're digging away.
Yeah.
Ahsoka is my third favorite Star Wars characters. This show is offensive to me. Like in Rebels, spoiler for Rebels people, but she's alive, so it doesn't matter. Her ending in Rebels is tragic, but it was the way it had to end.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, she should have lost. She should have died against Vader.
At the time, the greater contextual thing of the story of Star Wars, right?
Well, it fits. Like she says, Anakin, this time I won't leave you. And
Yes.
The inner Anakin is like, please leave. You know what I mean? The little part of him that's good say, get out of here. I'm going to, like the part of me that's taking over, the Vader part that Luke eventually gets through to, is going to kill you. Well, that's happening in there. And Vader, like the anger that Vader is, has to kill everything he was before to justify him being Vader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ahsoka had to die, not because he had to kill an enemy of Palpatine, but because she was part of Anakin, who was still good. And he had to kill her metaphorically and physically to keep Anakin down.
Yeah.
And the breaking straw for that, like it actually kind of works, because then Luke, being so powerful in the Force, gets through to him eventually by making him touching that to the Force, that inner part of Vader that's still Anakin and good, to break free from the Sith control finally.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, I thought that was a great fight. It's a shame that they fucking copied it in Kenobi. Like Kenobi, I have to ask you guys, what do you think is worse, Kenobi or The Last Jedi, or Rise of Skywalker?
Kenobi.
Wow, you Gadfly, have you seen them? Have you seen any of them, or have you spared yourself the?
I've seen a bit of Kenobi, and I would say the Disney movies are worse in terms of just being overall garbage, but the Obi-Wan show does more damage to the original trilogy, and also has the most stupid scenes.
Yes, that's true.
Well, people didn't catch this, but what you're saying, Kenobi breaks PTOT canon. So what a lot of us speculate, and not giving Kathleen Kennedy's proclivities, is that they're planning on redoing the OT in light of the changes they want to make to de-emphasize Luke and all that sort of stuff.
Well, they'll do the prequels first, I think. They'll redo the prequels first, and then they'll do the original trilogy.
Well, I don't know if they will, because Disney is kind of undergoing a bit of a collapse, and
I think that's the plan, though. Whether they end up doing it or not,
I hate saying it, but Kathleen Kennedy's like 70 years old or whatever she is, and eventually, just due to age, people get pushed out. In other words, on the corporate ladder, if you can't advance as CEO and you're in your 70s, you're going to get pushed out by someone coming up behind you who has more energy, more ties to what's coming up, and all that.
It depends on how many closets and how many skeletons you know.
Well, it's people in larger context. What happened with Favreau? He was an up and comer, looking at possible to knock her out. She won over the fight. Favreau left the company to go do his own thing. So now Filoni's trying to be the up and comer. For the ones we know about, there's 10 other people saying we want that spot. Fahey wants that spot, by the way. He wants her job. If you didn't know that, and eventually one of these up and comers, the older person, is going to age themselves out of it, where they're blackmail and their financial clout. But she's rich. Lucas made her very rich with stock options and all that, and so it eventually you just lose out to unless you advance up the corporate ladder, you lose out to the people coming after you. It's just dog eat dog. Which I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that will save us. Well, I might not live long enough, but that might save us from Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
What's the quote from Song of Solomon? Vanity of vanities, all is vanity.
Vanity. Oh, from Old Testament.
Yeah. It's just like, when a person's time comes, it comes, and that's it for them. So.
Oh, okay.
The point of that verse and the context around it is essentially if you don't have the hope of the faith, then what's the point of doing anything? Because ultimately you're just going to die, and your life is meaningless afterwards.
Oh.
You die.
So, in other words,
You know,
nihilism, basically.
Well, it's supposed to emphasize that if you don't have the faith, then nihilism is like
going to take its course.
It's supposed to be a big hopeful thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, okay. Oh man. So,
well, I mean, that's why we watch this stuff, to explore those sort of issues, you know. And you gotta. I mean, I just turned 50 this year, and obviously,
happy birthday.
Thank you. I have some. Well, it was 2 months ago.
In
but
2 days, I'm 37.
Congrats. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I'm older than you, dude. I'm older than you, Gadfly. Jesus.
But
Not saying, much, I don't think.
No. I turned 39 in November.
You're actually the same age as one of my brothers. So.
And as I face my mortality with health issues and whatever, I'm like, you know, no one's going to care who I am 150 years from now. And so why am I even here, right? And it's got to be something internal that you're here for, something qualitative, something, you know, whether, I mean, well, you know, not to sidetrack the stream, but I found myself thinking about religion more as I get older. Not because you do for your death and whatever, but I'm like, it seems very like cold to just there be like. Oh, we talk about anime or read books or watch sports, which I am on the other screen or whatever, and like, what does that all mean? You know what I mean? Like, my brain's absorbing this information, right? And I'm living my life, and you know, like, in a larger context, like technically, I'm not saying I should die, but like, if I just, you know, if I exploded right now, not on screen, of course, but and cease to exist, what would that really mean? You know what I mean? Like, what would is the fact that here was I important? Or there's a band called Nightwish, and they did a really long song based on a book by a biologist. So I'm skipping around to this, and
it's amazing how so many metal bands are so well read and just intelligent. But sorry, that was a sidetrack.
Yeah. Well. The Greatest Show on Earth is the name of the song, and it's based on a book by the biologist. I can't remember his name, but he said at one point in his they have some of the text from him read in the long form of the song, right? And at the end he goes, because he's an atheist, right? He thinks when you die you cease to exist, and he goes, well, and this is the end of the song for Nightwish, and he goes, well, the amazing thing is that we were here to see it. That we were here, we saw this amazing evolution, and he gives the odds of it even happening, like a million to one or whatever, you know. And the end of the song is we were here. So at some point you got to say, you know, it is important that I was here. To me,
well, when you take the nihilistic approach tends to zoom way too far out, but when you zoom back in, you look and you're like, okay, well, what matters is how I affect the people around me in my day-to-day life and the existence that I have. And you want to, you know, have that positive impact on the people around you and help them and help them thrive. And you hope that the people around you are also trying to do that for you. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it does. But well, yeah, the impact you have on the world around you is, regardless of politics or whatever, the impact you have on the world is the people immediately around you.
Yeah, I feel that way myself. And whether people have that effect on me, I mean, I'm not entitled to that. So I just don't. I try really hard not to concern myself with that, because it's just. It's only thing I could control is what I do. I can't worry about what other people do. And and I understand world's not fair, and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of things, and fortunately I'm not the center of it. I'm just a dipshit from Chicago and everything. So
I've concluded, like, the fact that I am here and participating is amazing, and if there's something more, that's cool too. Like yeah, let's toast to that we were here. There we go.
To Matt, the based hater.
Yeah. Well, there's something like I think it's called the anthropomorphic principle, and it comes from physics, where some physicists observed, there are about 30 or 40 fundamental constants to the universe, and every single one of them has to be a particular value for the universe to exist as it was and for us to exist. And if any one of them were just slightly like
Minuscule
1/10 of
fraction.
1/1,000,000th of 1% off, atoms wouldn't form, or planets wouldn't form, or whatever. Like all of them have all different, like Avogadro's constant, or the Schrodinger's constant. I
haven't heard Avogadro's number since chemistry.
Well, I brought it up first because I know you would recognize it there.
Isn't that a Harry Potter character?
Yeah.
It's been a while. I don't even remember how it's. I don't even remember what exactly it is. So
it's the number of moles in a number of molecules in a mole.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. There you go.
I will remember that forever because the most attractive possible teacher I could imagine taught it to me in high school. So
does that mean the components that make up a Queen's mole are some of the biggest things ever? That was a little low.
That's the mole thing I'm fine with. It's just the mole thing is I mean I'm not gonna even say anything.
It's such a shame because even with that mole, like I can't really talk. I've got moles.
I got a mole.
But like she's a fairly attractive woman. When you take her out of the Wheel of Time context, it's just the Wheel of Time. The show does so much work to make all the women unattractive.
and the men, except for David Henney, who must have in his contract, you cannot make me look bad. Must be
and Rafe's boyfriend.
Maxim, I did it for love. Why did I join the tower? I did it because I was in love with Yvonne, and Yvonne's like, I did it for I'm in love with an Aes Sedai. Okay, that was a bad impression, but
I know you're watching
Drago, the Order.
Yeah. I know you're watching, but how many Daniel Hennessy pose down scenes with the topless have there been so far? Like at least 3 per season. It's like every time I see it, I'm like, okay, it must be his contractual topless appearance for this episode.
I don't know. I wanted to make fun. I don't think my joke really landed. I used the Seinfeld, Elaine's nipple joke of the Christmas card and all that. That's kind of what I was trying to do when Lan's twisting his nipples and all that. I don't know. I'm not sure that really landed, but I don't know. What's funny? I don't know. Did you Matt? Did you watch my my praise of Wheel of Time season 2? And how like it was my attempt at humor. I pretend like I'm a shill, but I'm really bad at it. And I take shots at everybody. I take shots at Pips. I take shots at I take shots at book cloaks in general. I say book cloaks. I say incel. I say every word. I say toxic. All the things that defenders of these shows and attackers will say. And that's kind of what I did. And I actually asked them to record shit for me, like "fuck you, dude," or "fuck you," and "you're just an asshole" and all that. And
is that the one they posted in the general chat? Because I think I got to watch it still.
It's I think I put it in the the allies, or at least with the band of the Red Hand, I put in the allies.
But then someone linked to it, I think, in one of the general chats. I saw it and I'm like, what is that? Is that because I'm very leery of, for some reason, YouTube keeps recommending YouTube videos of people reviewing Wheel of Prime who like it, and I'm like, I'll watch usually the first minute or two, and if they like it for real reasons, I'm okay with it. I'll even give them a little watch. But as soon as I start hearing the person saying, I don't know what they're complaining about because it's not woke, or saying that it's as good as the book, then I'm like, click, goodbye, flush, gone. I won't even finish the video because I'm a YouTube, I have YouTube paid, so to speak. So they get free money if I watch their video. And I have to stop after. So for every minute of their video watch, they get a chunk of change. So, and I can't, I mean, I still can't understand. I can accept that there are people who never read the books, who might like soap opera stuff, who like this. I can accept that. I can accept that there are a bunch of lefties, like 10 people who like this, right? I can't accept anyone who read the book and enjoyed them and thought they were great, who thinks this is a good adaptation of the book. I can't accept those people. I can even see people who say they love the book and like this, but they know it's different. I can kind of go with those people and say, okay, live and let live. But the ones who love the book and think this is a good adaptation of it, the sellouts like Nay Bliss and Daniel Green, hate naming names, but you got to name them.
That's fine.
And like
Dusty
and people,
Watt Up, I think, as well.
Yeah, but there's tons of others like that.
Dragon Mount.
Yeah, and I just.
Well, it's because of the disingenuous nature of their arguments. You know, they're using all the logical fallacies. They're straw manning and steel manning and Mott and Baileying and everything, and they're grossly misrepresenting the criticisms that people have for the show, both as an adaptation and as a piece of media on its own. And that's the thing that really gets me is disingenuous misrepresentation.
Yeah. I'm being even like as fair as possible. You can like something that's bad. Like I've watched like the Legends of Shannara, the Shannara Chronicles. It's fan servicey. It's a very bad adaptation. But the guy who played Alanon got the little spot on, and it's some cool action sequence. I can kind of watch it and kind of enjoy it, right? You know what I mean? Even though The Elves of Shannara is my favorite book, and there's never been a good adaptation that was a horrible adaptation. You know what I mean? Or
how many did Terry Brooks do? I mean, I've only read a long time ago. I read the first one.
I read the first Shannara. 20 or 25 of them.
There's that many. Does he still write Shannara?
No, he finished off the world, so to speak.
There were only a handful that were in the main storyline, though, right? Or
no, he wrote the original 3 books, which weren't a trilogy, even though people call them a trilogy: Sword of Shannara, Elfstone of Shannara, and Wish Song of Shannara. Yeah. Elfstone is my second favorite fantasy book after Lord of the Rings, by the way.
Which one? The Sword?
The Elfstone of Shannara.
Okay. Yeah. So I from what I understand is that the Shannara world is post-apocalyptic.
Yes. So he wrote those 3. Then years later he wrote what's called the Heritage of Shannara Quadrology, which is a really good series, which takes place about 200 or 300 years later. Then he wrote a separate, what we thought at the time was a separate series, which is his best series, by the way. It's called the Word and the Void trilogy. It's in my top 10 trilogies of all time. Okay, and the main character of that, John Dacre, it's been years since I've reread it, is one of the best main characters of a book series you'll ever get.
I had a question. Why did Terry Brooks was it his publisher that kind of forced him to make it very similar to Lord of the Rings in terms of structure and characters? So, you know why he did that?
So let me put it this way. You ever heard the term Lester Del Rey is the guy's name, and I think his wife was Lana Del Rey or something like that.
Okay.
Unless you were an established master level author, whenever you were edited by Lester Del Rey, you might as well call him your co-writer. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when Terry wrote the Sword of Shannara, he was a lawyer who wrote a legal treatise masquerading as a fantasy novel. So Lester went through it with him and said, wait. You got a good story and character in here, but you're writing it like you're presenting a document to the Supreme Court. You know? So they reworked it quite a bit, and it was a very story structure similar to Lord of the Rings, especially early on, which a lot of fantasy novels were. But Terry Brooks just wrote a very good version as opposed to the 900 other ones, which all sucked, you know? And then what happened is a lot of people started complaining, which always happens with when fantasy exploded in the early 80s as a novel category, right?
Yeah.
So then people started then the fake critics came in and started being critically analyzing everything and saying, because the dirty secret, all those critics hated Lord of the Rings when it came out. They hated it.
I heard.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there were a couple who liked it, but the literary critics thought it was gutter trash, you know?
Yeah. And I remember like Tom Shippey, it was reaction to that Tom Shippey's like, they're full of shit. This Lord of the Rings is unlike other things. Lord of the Rings has a lot of depth to it.
They refuse to acknowledge that anything that wasn't a
literary classic,
not even a literary classic, just a modern real world story that touched on essentially the nihilistic nature of life was not worth anything, right? Like, so they had this absolute rejection of anything that was not contemporary setting, bleak outlook, and bland as fuck characters. And so Lord of the Rings comes in and blows all three of those things out of the water, but has so much more highbrow intellectual content into it.
Yeah.
And so it offended them personally that it could exist. Which, I mean, like, think of the Northmen film and the whatchamacallit, the children movie recently. I forget the name of it.
Freedom, Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, children. Like, what children?
Yeah.
What children?
Think of the people criticized and how they criticize those films. It's because they're personally offended by the nature of the stories.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so like you were saying, the critics now thinking they had to make up for like disliking Tolkien or pretend defending his work by saying, "Oh, this is a knockoff. This is a knockoff. This is a knockoff." And yeah, and like, so that's a lot of books like in like that 75 to let's say 83, 84 period were criticized as being derivative, but the reality is everything is derivative of something else. Okay,
true.
I mean, Epic of Gilgamesh came out 4,000 years ago.
I forget that was was that I forget was that Babylon or
Sumerian?
Sumerian. So Sumerian
so the people
isn't Sumer like one of the oldest?
Before Babylon.
Isn't Sumer like one of the oldest civilizations?
Yeah,
even
I think
older than
the Akkadians. Then
what was first, Egypt or Sumer?
Sumer was they're kind of contemporaneous when you look at the timeline, but
they inhabited, if I remember correctly, they inhabited the Fertile Crescent area. So what became known as Mesopotamia,
the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates.
Yeah,
which that whole Babylonian, Sumerian, Akkadian, and there's another group in there. That whole group, the reason they tend to be acknowledged as the first civilization is because we have the best records of them and what they like, their culture. A lot of the ancient Egyptian stuff, we still don't know how to translate a lot of it.
Babylon had the infamous Code of Hammurabi, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, which we could translate. There was that translation survived through the centuries.
Isn't that where the whole eye for an eye came from? The Code of Hammurabi? Or was that from? Because I know it was mentioned obviously in the New Testament, but I was wondering if that also came from the Code of Hammurabi.
It is in part of Leviticus as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a concept that comes up.
I actually read Leviticus when I was in college. I read Leviticus. That was a drag. That was a real that Numbers and Deuteronomy were a drag.
Imagine doing it at Sunday school when you're 7 years old.
but that concept of equal recompense.
The thing is, with the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Hebrews, we don't exactly have concrete records as to the descent of their culture. We know they existed. We have a general time frame, but that early sort of structure, like they know the Hebrews came out of the mountains. They were worshiping Baal and all those other primordial gods. Then for some reason they switched, became monotheists worshiping Yahweh and came down out of the mountains. That we kind of know that happened. We don't know why exactly it happened, other than the Bible version of God said so, and like the Egyptian cultures, I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've read this stuff. The earliest Egyptian languages we don't have the translations we have are because later Egyptians, say in like the 1st or 2nd century BC, translated them from older. So we got that. Then the Greeks got translations of that, but we don't actually know the original ancient language. I think it's called Linear A. We only know Linear B.
Well, that's of the Greeks, right? And so we understand a chunk of Linear A. So we can understand chunks, and we can see that in the Linear A documents from Minos, they reference stuff like Egypt under old Egyptian names, right?
Why is it called Linear A?
Because of the writing, the writing pattern. They wrote as what is called as the ox plows. I'd give you the Greek term, but it's blanking on me at the moment. But they used to write so it would go across like this, and then it would continue directly underneath and go back that way, and go back and forth like that. So it took a while for people to clue into that. But yeah, so we have a huge amount of evidence of all sorts of stuff going on all over the Mediterranean and into the Sumerian Valley, everywhere, but we don't fully understand the text that they're in. We can understand snippets here and there, so we can understand like the names of places and deities and individuals and certain things, but we don't piece how the whole stuff goes together.
And they keep finding older and older settlements, which we don't know what, like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is 11,000 years old. It's the oldest known example of civilization. They may have found, I was reading something that they may have found another site that's like 15 or 20,000 years old, the megalithic city structure, you know? So,
but the other thing about those settlements is there's also questions about the dating process. Because you have the radiocarbon dating, but that gives you a range. And the farther back in time you go, the greater the range is.
Well, they have other radiological elements, though, and I think they try to use.
So they have they have good rough dating for a lot of this stuff. But so much of the dating overlaps. And so it becomes a toss-up of like, what the hell is going on when you actually really start delving into it. And you're like, holy crap, like there were a lot of people alive back then.
Yeah, that's the whole thing we were saying with the Sumerians. We have fairly concrete knowledge of that Babylonian, Sumerian. I know one was the Akkadians, and there was another civilization somewhere in that chain. I can't remember. But we kind of know, like from translations we actually have and actual valid historical research, what happened in that particular location in the time period. It was maintained by, for whatever reason. The same thing in India. Another ancient India goes back fairly far too with some of the civilization stuff. We don't have concrete records of it. We don't even know concrete structural.
Because one of the things about one of the reasons why we have so many good documentations from Sumer and Acadia and stuff is because the nature of the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, do not have set boundaries. And so every like flood season, the boundaries of the river shifts. And so over time,
you mean like the banks, the banks of the rivers?
They shift, they move. And so over time, what ended up happening is you had areas that were coastal cities end up becoming more inland as the river shifts and more soil is deposited into the sea, and then they get further and further away from the rivers too, which means that they become drier and drier and drier. And stuff survives really well when it's in a really dry, dark environment.
Yeah,
and that's why they're finding all sorts of stuff in caves in and
like
around
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Because the environment is so perfect for. They found some Roman swords recently that have the scabbard in good condition, which is a leather scabbard, and the handles, which are made out of wood and bone, in good condition. Good condition for something that's like a couple thousand years old. But they're in good enough condition that people can actually remark on the craftsmanship of them, because they were stored in these caves that were incredibly dry climate cave. So, crazy cool stuff.
Yeah, it's such a okay, I'll be back in a minute, but it's such an amazing sort of tree you can go down with watching an anime or reading Tolkien just lead you on. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute.
Well, we can. I can just jump into like talking about stuff that all of this stuff is based on, which are the ancient epics, right? Like
Yeah.
the epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey. So the oldest, aside from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest written documents of story, right? But those characters are very archetypical characters. But the crazy thing is they're actually so incredibly detailed about the cities, their locations, the accoutrements that people are wearing, that when people discover stuff, they can be like, oh wow, we can date this because of the descriptions in this poem written about 800 BC orally, and then written down like 300 years later. And that's how a fella found the city of Troy archaeologically. Now,
based on the descriptions in the Iliad.
Yeah,
Nice.
And so he his archaeological procedure was not great. He used a lot of dynamite, which was normal at the time. But, but yeah,
when was Troy discovered?
Ooh.
Was it like in the 20th century? Was it earlier?
Century, 1840s, 1850s. Anyways, but so the other thing is like, because of all of this, the accuracy within these documents, we can also look at the accuracy of the culture of the time, right? And we can mesh up the story that we have inherited to the art that we see, and from like Mycenaean, so Bronze Age Greek cities and stuff that are dug up and looked at, and we can now take a look at what's said in the stories and what people say academically, and compare the two. Now, one of the favorite things people like to say about the story of the Iliad is that Achilles and Patroclus were lovers. But there is zero artistic renderings in the Mycenaean era of any sexual relations whatsoever between men or women. So we have no evidence that there was a sexual relation aside from what people are reading into the story. And as a matter of fact, we can compare and contrast laws from around the time of, or before that time and into that time, because the Mycenaean era was a dark age in which.
So Mycenaean, what was the Mycenaean era again? Or that's a type of Greek? So
that's Bronze Age Greek.
Bronze Age. So I forget, when exactly is the Bronze Age again? That's
1100 to 800.
Okay.
Approximately. That's a sort of rough time span. So it's after the Minoans, but before classical Greece arise.
Okay. When's classical Greece really start?
500.
500. Okay.
This is another one of these issues where everybody comes up with their own date to determine when things start and end. It's like, when did the Roman Empire fall? It's like, depending on who you ask.
400. I mean, from what I see, it's like the last time I really studied this stuff, I think I was in grade school. So that's kind of why I'm kind of it's been a while since I've read up on Roman and Greek stuff. So
yeah, but yeah, so it's like, this is one of the issues I have as a classicist scholar. I have to deal so much with people retroactively applying modern
ideas
into the past. And so I have to constantly fight against that sort of stuff. And
Socrates was a toxic male and blah, blah, blah. Shut up.
Not even necessarily that, but like,
I know, but
Socrates was clearly a homosexual because he was Greek. It's like, what? Well, because the Greeks have so much pornographic material that is homosexual in origin. It's like, well, one, you're forgetting that it's a lot of this stuff in very concentrated areas. So it's like you see a lot of it in like one person's house that's excavated. But it's not everywhere. You know, it's not in every person's living room, so to speak. So the question is, like, how common is it actually if you're only seeing it in these pockets of isolation amongst the greater community?
Mhm.
And then also there's a text, the Symposium, Plato's Symposium.
Yeah, we had to read that for. I had to take my final semester of college. I had to take an elective, so I took a philosophy class, and it was like Philosophy 100, I think.
There's a debate within that text on what the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus is. And Socrates, the character, so Plato, the writer, presents a lot of different ideas of what people were thinking at that time the relationship was. And you actually see that most people did not think it was a sexual relation.
Oh, the nephew thing? Yeah.
The Achilles Patroclus, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, if at that time there was no consensus, at the time of classical Greece, which was hundreds of years after the event, there was no consensus, then how can you say now, contemporaneously, there was a consensus way back?
Well, there's a phrase for that. I don't mean a derogatory phrase. I mean like retroactively deciding someone was gay or whatever. They tried to do that with Lincoln.
Really?
They tried to do it with Lincoln. That was out there. For
Why?
That's the first time I became aware of it back in the 90s. I remember, not to get political, but Rush Limbaugh debunking it on TV. You know, but like the whole thing with like, look, I'm a mostly libertarian, somewhat conservative person. You're an adult. You're a consenting adult. What adults want to do, I'm perfectly fine with. You know what I mean? And I think that for a lot of parts of our history, homosexual people, to use scientific terms, had got the shaft, so to speak. I don't mean, I'm not making a pun. I'm just saying, you know, very, very, like, that they were mistreated by history. But a lot of people were mistreated by history. You know what I mean? Like, history was always about whoever was in power mistreating those who weren't, so they could keep power. No matter what color you were, no matter what ethnicity you were, the truth of power is whoever had power wanted to maintain it, so they exploited and dominated those who weren't in power. That's just the way it is. Or was, I should say. And is it to an extent nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's also there's a lot of times there's something that is established for a reason, but then it is manipulated by people after that fact to mean something else. So
you don't need Patroclus to be homosexual for gay people now to have rights that they should have. You know what I mean? Like it's the whole to get out of, like, go to comic books, for example. They decided, I think in like around 2007 or 8, when comic books started getting invaded by woke people, that Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, who had adult children, by the way, with his wife, was all of a sudden going to become gay, just out of nowhere. He was gay, you know, and
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but and our response to those comics was, "What do you mean we're not inclusive because he wasn't gay? We've had gay characters at least since the 80s. North Star and Alpha Flight was gay from the beginning, and no one ever complained. You know, we, you know, like in other words, Doctor Who. Doctor Who's had gay characters for a long time before even the modern run of it. You know, going back to the old series, there's a couple of characters who were of homosexual persuasion. Some of the companions, and like they're trying to say that we as fandoms were not inclusive or open to it because there weren't existing characters weren't gay. Then you go to Eric July, who made the very proper point. What I was applying now is the whole sloppy seconds theorem. Like when you fake diversify, you're saying that a minority character isn't good enough to stand. Original character isn't good enough to stand alone. They have to have sloppy white seconds. Is what Eric July calls it. So when you make a character who was, say, European of some sort or straight into a gay or, say, a black character, you're saying that you can't make an original black character that is good enough to ever be as good as the white character. We have to make the white character black.
Yeah, and when you are retroactively applying all these things to people in antiquity, you actually are diminishing the nature of the reality of that person's situation. In like when they say that there was a ton of black people in Britain under the Romans. It's like, well, one, your definition of black is African, which does, like, when you look at the ethnicities of people who are on the north border of Africa, so bordering the Mediterranean, they were Mediterranean.
So olive skin.
Yeah. So,
like I would look if I went in the sunlight.
Yeah. So you're diminishing what is going on in the world to all those different groups of people by trying to force somebody in there. And so when you go back and you say, oh, well, this person obviously was gay, you're actually misrepresenting what the situation truly was at that point in time for a person being gay at that point in time, by saying it was a lot more common than it actually was.
Hmm.
Well, look at what just happened with two things, like Cleopatra and the Woman King, right? So first they try to make they had the Cleopatra is black thing, which she wasn't, right? And then they go with the whole remember the Woman King, that movie about a woman king?
That one tribe of women that like in real history enslaved and
violent slaving, and they had to whitewash that, and people were like, there are other female black characters, historical characters from Africa you could have picked who weren't violent slavers to make a movie about.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, so history is, and the study of history at this point in time is so frustrating.
Like the whole like when you talk to an Egyptian person who are descended from ancient Egyptians, they're literally descended from them, and they go, our ancestors weren't black, they looked like us. You know what I mean? It's like and like you should have seen, I watched on was it Piers Morgan? I was watching a clip from this show where they had an actual Egyptian historian arguing with one of these woke people saying that Cleopatra was black. And he goes, no, she looked either like me or like a European. There was no black ancestry.
Wasn't Cleopatra Greek?
She was Greek with okay, so
Macedonian.
Macedonian, but
Macedonian.
Cover sensitive ears, people. There was a lot of incest and inbreeding in Cleopatra's family tree. It's possible that Cleopatra's mother and grandmother could have been the same person, for example. So they don't know who her mother was exactly. That's why it could have been her grandmother. They think she might be 1/4 actual Egyptian if her mother wasn't her grandmother. If I remember what some historians have said correctly. I'm not. I'm not a historical authority. I'm just conveying. Yeah.
Her father or her grandfather, I think it was her grandfather, had a native Egyptian concubine.
Yeah. Which
means native Egyptian, which means Mediterranean.
Like looking like modern Egyptians, and like, but they also have DNA from some of our ancestors, which also demonstrated Macedonian. They have historical artifacts which show what she's supposed to have looked like, which was not an African person, and like, so rather than make fake stuff up, like, you guys know who Thomas Sowell is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few of his audiobooks. Yeah. I actually started listening to his basics of economics.
Yeah,
I haven't finished it. I only listened to like the first couple chapters.
He's an amazing guy, and he's interviews all over YouTube. And one of them with a PBS guy is he was talking about the book Roots, and when they asked Alex Haley, like, why did you fictionalize Roots? And he goes, well, my people needed a story. And so many people think that the story in Roots is real when it's not. But yet they made that miniseries, and a lot of Black Americans thought this is our story, the story of our ancestors. When
how accurate is Roots? Is it accurate at all, or
I would say 75% inaccurate, because the whole issue of how the slaves got from Africa to the coast is whitewashed out of it. Which was Black African tribes conquering other Black African tribes, selling them to the Europeans at the coast.
Yeah.
And
how long was that series? Was that like a mini? Was it like a mini series? Like
I think it was like a
13,
maybe a 6 or 8 part mini. I mean, because it depends. If you air it as 2 hours a chunk, it's like how long is Shogun? Is it 2 4-hour blocked, or is it what I mean? Like when it originally aired, there was like
so Shogun wasn't a full show. It was just
with a mini series based on a book.
Mini series. Okay,
yeah,
that's a series I kind of want to see, because I'm really interested in
Well, that's a whole deep dive on the bookend. James Clavell. That's a whole world he created with Shogun and the Noble House, and there's like 10 or have you ever read any of his stuff? Gadfly, James Clavell. But there's a whole Oriental, set in Orient, Japan, Hong Kong set of stories he wrote that start from the 1400s and occur in the 20th century. They made TV movies of Shogun, Noble House, and one other one. But it's really good. I've read like 4 or 5 of them. Shogun's one of my favorite books of all time, and I love the Shogun miniseries.
Who was in the Shogun miniseries? It was early 70s, right?
80s. Richard Chamberlain played the pilot, John Blackthorne.
Okay.
John Rhys Davies played the Portuguese bastard. I remember the name of what they called each other. Toshiro Mifune played the Shogun, so to speak. Hasegawa? No, starts with a T. He played the main Shogun, so to speak, the main Japanese warlord. If you watch a lot of Japanese movies, you'll recognize all the actors and actresses.
Yeah, everybody knows Toshiro Mifune, of course. Yeah. I mean, he's the star in like 80% of Kurosawa's films. So
yeah, he's like the Japanese Marlon Brando, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, Shogun. Yeah, so Shogun. What were the other shows you mentioned, or the other books you talked about? I mean, we talked about Roots.
Well,
we talked about Shogun.
We're talking James Clavell still, or James Clavell wrote a whole bunch of them. He wrote Noble House, which was Pierce Brosnan starred in that, and also John Rhys Davies again played another character. He's all over the place. Actor. You can just follow John Rhys Davies as a rabbit hole of movies, and that was in the 90s, I think. He's technically descended from John Blackthorne in the series of books, if you follow the chronology loosely,
James Clavell. Okay.
Yeah, his stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so this is based off of James Clavell. Okay, I'm gonna read what he's done.
Yeah.
So when does Shogun take place?
The story?
Yeah.
1500s, I think, or 1600s.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a while since I read it. I should dig it out and reread it. It's so big. Well, the paperback. Either you got a giant paperback like this, hardcover like this, or you got the one that was broken down into 2 smaller volumes. It was immense books. It made George R. R. Martin's book look small. It's yeah.
All right. Well, that looks pretty. This looks pretty cool. I'll have to definitely. I'll have to find. I'm wondering if is it. Do you know if it's streamable? I need to add that to my. Where's my notebook?
I mean, it might be on Amazon. I have them all scanned in for my Blu-rays and DVDs. If you can't find it, just send me a DM and I could get it to you.
Okay, I could definitely do that.
Yeah.
So,
but,
yeah. I mean, so just to kind of since we're already almost at 2 hours, so just a few announcements on my end. So I mean, I'm still going to continue the Chilporial. So Chilporial, basically, what I do is someone who is a content creator, usually a content creator, but doesn't have to be a content creator, and usually is also a member. So you and Gadfly would definitely be future. I'll ask you guys to do future Chillporial streams with me. So
That's cool.
There's just so many people. There's just too many people, and I do these weekly. So I haven't even I've done 14 of them. And I feel like I only skimmed the tip of the iceberg here. So. But yeah, you Gadfly and Matt, you're one of my oldest members, so I definitely gotta get you on soon. So
hey, we fellow burnt out Star Trek fans have got to keep supporting each
absolutely other. Exactly. How did you? Okay, Matt, I have to ask you, since you brought up Star Trek, how did you feel about the great Picard season 3? What did you think of Picard season 3?
I'll my only how to put this in the right way. I didn't watch Picard season 1 after I found out he went totally left wing with the blaming. Like I couldn't watch it.
Oh, and then, it's a good thing you didn't, because that first series was terrible. I couldn't. And the second, I didn't even bother watching the second series.
Yeah,
the series was even worse.
And then everyone told me that 3 was okay, so I started to watch it. I did reviews of the first couple episodes. And I still haven't gone back to finish my reviews because I got more and more annoyed by the plot as it went along. I predicted what was going to happen by the 5th episode. I said I figured, because here's the thing: there's so much of these modern writers from Wheel of Prime, Rings of Prime, Star Trek Picard, who just keep stealing stuff, and not in an homage way where you take a storyline from an older thing and like rework it and you use it in a respectful way, right? They just blatantly steal chunks of other stuff. Like and put them together in their thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like Picard, I remember saying, I liked the nostalgia stuff. I'll admit that, because it was some nice callbacks to some of it. And I liked how they didn't go they avoided, like when Picard actually spoke up about being berated by Beverly over stuff. I was like, okay, they're not going to go totally woke with this one. They're going to have some balance there. Remember when she was on him about not being possibly a good father, and he's like, "You didn't give me a choice."
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be honest. The one thing I did really like was Patrick Stewart actually channeled Picard a bit in the episode where Rogue comes into the picture, episode 5, and that was the one episode that me and Prophet, because me and Prophet were reacting to it. We both agreed it was the best episode of the series.
Yeah,
and I liked it for very different reasons. But the end of that episode just fell apart when you really think about it. And Alex of the White Cloaks, he pointed it out to us when we did our discussion. Just the whole mystery element falls apart in the very first scene with us finding out that those guys that go after Beverly are shapeshifters. That's not what shapeshifters are capable. They don't use energy weapons to kill. They don't have to.
Well,
the thing is they're incredibly durable species as well. So they don't have fear of phasers really all that much.
It took there was the episode Apocalypse Rising where they go to the Klingon world and you find out that General Martok is actually, they thought it was Gowron who was the shapeshifter, but it was actually Martok. It took several Klingon disruptors to kill General the changeling Martok.
So why don't those changelings they don't even need to go into goo and go behind Beverly. They could just run up to her.
Yeah.
Take some phaser fire and oh no.
Yeah. I used the episode with Ambassador Krajewski, the adversary. Perfect example of what the shapeshift, what the founders of the Dominion were capable of. So, and if I'm supposed to believe that the shapeshifters in Picard season 3 are an upgraded version of them, I don't see it. They were easy to kill, and they got the details. They got the details wrong. If you don't care about the details, and you enjoyed the arcs for what they were, then that's fine. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people that detracted New Trek really liked this particular
If-
series.
If they had done like, well, there's a theory. Gadfly, you remember this term, okayist? I meant the term okayist. There are a lot of people who aren't fans. They're okayists. They're like, oh, this is okay. It was okay, and they don't appreciate the value of continuity or the homage and all that sort of stuff. You know,
You think Robert Meyer Burnett would be a little bit more, because I actually believe. I mean, I honestly believe that I actually thought that the series might have been good. That's kind of why I covered it. I don't like to rage bait or do anything like that.
I don't think there was a lot to rage bait over it because, like I said, it was. I hate saying, I hate using my own term. It was okay. If that had been season 1 of Star Trek Picard, I would have been okay. It's way better than Discovery. I would have been kind of more forgiving of it. You know what I mean? Because in the context of season 1 of Picard and how atrocious season 2 was, from what I heard,
I think it's the only reason why people give this series a pass was because of how bad seasons 1 and 2 of Picard were.
No one talked about this. The ending of Star Trek Picard season 3 falls apart for one particular reason. Picard's an android now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just takes the jack and plugs it into him. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember what it would take to get an android connected to the collective from Star Trek Star Trek First Contact?
Yeah.
They had this whole elaborate setup to get an android. Yeah, he just takes the jack and plugs it in like it's magic.
Yeah.
How did that work? He's an android now. He's not a human anymore. He can't just jack himself into the collective.
He's a golem or whatever that is. I don't know.
Well,
nothing about New Trek makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that. There was a lot of bad writing in that scene. I enjoyed Worf's subplot with that woman, the commander.
Raffi, I didn't like it at all. It was I thought it was terrible.
Well, I like the sort of espionage aspect of all the investigating stuff, and like it wasn't typical just go there and kill people. You know what I mean? They were investigating and sneaking around, and it was more. It wasn't like a lot of times you'll see Worf misused in Star Trek where he just goes places, kills people, and does stuff, and that's all he does.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I dug that plot a little.
I felt like Worf was just there to be and Prophet put this perfectly, walking punchline, basically.
Oh, that a lot of times he winds up being a walking punchline just because of the way they play Klingons. I dislike Forehead Ridge Klingons with this over excessive warrior honor. I prefer TOS Klingons.
You prefer. What's funny is the TOS Klingons have more in common with the Cardassians.
They're very Machiavellian.
They're very Machiavellian. They're very. I mean, in the Errand of Mercy episode, the core is like, what makes us so unique? We're very scrutinous, even amongst our leadership. If you'll know, and then you see the camera, you see that they were being watched the entire time, and that
yeah.
And then that's when all shit goes down in that episode, not everything. Yeah. So, but yeah. So what's up, Salty? I mean, if you want to, you can join us here. I mean, you're a member, dude. Just hit the link. It's in the community tab. So yeah, come join us.
Yeah, jump on.
Do you think they're going to do either a Star Trek Picard season 4 or that sequel series they alluded to?
I hope not. But then again, I honestly, if people really want it, people were bitching about, people wanted Strange New Worlds, and CBS provided it to them. So if people really want, the Star Trek Legacy, then people can get it. I mean, I know quite a few people that really like Picard season 3. Some people say it was better than the TNG films, and I thought about that. I rewatched some of the TNG films, some of the weaker ones like Nemesis. And I'll be honest, I prefer Star Trek Nemesis to Picard season 3. Like
I agree. I think the TNG films are better than Picard or Discovery and that. But I think the original, the first 6 Star Trek films are better than films.
Easily.
Even the worst of them, arguably, which is Star Trek 5. I would say Star Trek 4 is the worst, personally. But
really, you don't like whales? You don't like whales?
Crazy,
as far as I'm concerned, I think those Purrgil and Ahsoka and Rebels.
Yeah,
I'm assuming those are the species that sent the whale probe into.
I made Star that Trek joke 4, too. At least.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just one of the things that has been striking me for the past little while has been we have had a lot of reboots and a lot of later edition sequels and stuff that people have just completely forgotten about. Like, have people really remembered that Lost in Space was a thing again on Netflix?
That was really good.
It was pretty good, but people just didn't care after a while. And the Dark Crystal thing,
I heard it was. I heard it
that they did, but it's now completely forgotten.
It's interesting because I heard other things from other people. I haven't watched it myself. The Lost in Space. I've heard the word that rhymes with oak.
Okay,
it gets there.
Is that a case, or are they just being, or is it just rage farming for
like
clicks?
In my opinion, it's very much like the Continental show that's out now. There are some moments where it's always kind of present, but it's to the point where you can mostly ignore it. But there are some moments that it just smashes you in the face with it.
Yeah.
Well, I also think, and I remind people all the time about this, maybe because I'm older and have seen the transition, not everything that seems woke is woke. Like, if there's a rational explanation for why a female character can do some superhuman crap, then it's not woke. Like, she has superpowers or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, it could be bad writing that could still be there, but like in the John Wick films, they all have basically superpowers, men and women. You know what I mean? There's no real people. Well,
nobody outside of the John Wick universe is convinced that Ruby Rose can hold her own against anybody.
Yeah, but the reality is, in that universe, all those assassins have super medicine they take and super training and whatever. I mean, Keanu Reeves' character walked through a desert with no water for a month. Come on,
Yeah.
Or, and then there's the.
So how do you feel about the John Wick? I mean, I really enjoyed them. Like, I enjoyed them.
The movies?
Yeah. The John Wick.
I love the first two. That fight scene, I think it's in the beginning of the second one in the knife museum.
Yeah.
That's one of my top 5 fight scenes in all movies. Okay. I thought the third and fourth film, which I liked, should have been split into 2 films each, and it would have been much more enjoyable. I still like them a lot. I like the ending of John Wick 4 a lot. Are we allowed to spoil it?
Yeah, Yeah, that's fine. Go. I love going fighting up those stairs.
Well, he goes. He missed on purpose, you idiot.
They fulfill a fantastic role of that action flick, like that full, like that's its purpose. That's the purpose of the first one is slightly different, but the second, third, and fourth, they're an action flick. That's what their role is. The first one fulfills that innate desire in people's hearts of the righteous anger, right? Because in that first one, John Wick is righteously angry and righteously going after these people. And that's something everybody just feels that at some point in time. And they just have that. If I could, I would just go after those scumbags and obliterate them and crush them. So it fulfills that carnal urge for wrath, the wrath of Achilles. So
don't like the sleeping dragon. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's funny in John Wick 1, like okay, so I have this theory, which I don't know if you listened to one of our last couple streams on the Questioner's Gadfly, but it's like an observational thing where when you observe a story, like really observe the story, the villain always makes one mistake that they don't realize is a mistake that changes the entire game plan, right? For the villain, for what happens. Like the best example, for example, in Naruto, without going into the whole story, what Naruto is about, the QB is trapped inside Naruto, like locked in him, being forced to have his chakra taken. Although he's starting to like Naruto personally a little bit. And all of a sudden, the bad guys summon Madara Uchiha back from the dead, and the QB is like, "What the fuck?" That guy, like, he hates him more than anyone else there is. And the entire perspective of the QB changes, which inadvertently changes the tide for the good guys because now he's helping them actively because he hates Madara more than anyone, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the thematics of the fantasy of the prisoner is evil is always its own undoing.
Yeah. So in John Wick, the conversation when the father of that gangster, I can't remember his name right now, calls John Wick on the phone.
Vigo,
And he talks to John. And he had said something slightly different, like, "John, I know my son did a bad thing, but is there a way we have worked together and been friends? Can we come to peace with this that allows my son to live?" Give John the option. That conversation could have ended the whole movie had he done a different take right there. Like, what I mean? Like,
let us not resort to our baser, and it's like, all right, I'm resorting to my baser instincts.
There's always now I mentioned, you guys might start noticing in these stories, movies, books, wherever, where something like that happens, or the villain makes that mistake that they don't even realize is a mistake, and it changes the whole paradigm for the good guy's side. You know,
didn't Wick's like, "I want your son" or something because of what he did to the dog or something? I forget how that played out.
Well, that was after the phone call.
That was after the phone call. Like Wick, the dog being killed, of course, obviously is from the wife, and then Wick himself opens being killed, set off the rage monster, and he was like a bullet heading towards the target. And Vigo had one chance to sort of like holster the gun with the right thing said at the right time, or I just thought of another example like that. My brain just misfired. I saw something real cool that would be like that in not Lord of the Rings. I can't. I had another great example of it, and we just started talking, and it went right out of my head. But you'll notice that sort of stuff, I kind of, since I've been noticing that sort of stuff, I have greater and greater respect for writers who can pull it off. A classic one that Lucas, I guess, deserves credit for, in Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. Right, Lucas falling to the dark side. He's gonna murder stomp Vader, and right then the Emperor speaks up, like, "Embrace your hate, feel blah blah blah." Had the Emperor remained silent there's a good chance Luke gives in and goes to the dark side right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. Villains tend to break the. One thing. What are they saying in Art of War? Like, never let your enemy. Always let your enemy make a mistake or something. Never obstruct your enemy from making a mistake or something.
Yeah, something like that.
That's kind of what it is, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a bad comparison. I don't know.
Evil.
I've never read the Art of War.
Evil is always its own undoing.
Did anybody in particular say that evil is its own undoing?
I did just now.
So a wise man once said evil
but
is its own undoing.
It's a well remarked upon thematic structure of
well, Tolkien had a more formal way of saying it that escapes me right now in one of his letters. Evil contains something of its own destruction or some.
Evil can't create anything new. It can only. What was it? How exactly does he put it? It can only tear down and destroy. I forget how he put it.
Yeah, exactly. I know the saying. It's from one of the letters too.
Like, I remember, because what's so funny, and you guys already know this, but when Rings of Power came out with their trailers and all that, everybody was quoting that.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, YouTube had to remove comments or something. Oh my God.
Well, or another one, because Tolkien had, I think it's letter 168 or 210 or something like that, where they were trying to make a Lord of the Rings film in the late 60s through the 70s, which eventually became the movie Excalibur, by the way. They kept writing to Tolkien while trying to put this movie together, and he kept ripping apart their things, like saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So people were taking what he was saying about that and applying it to Rings of Power, like, in tweeting back. It's like, or in like comments on YouTube or whatever. Like they did, like out of time they were taking what Tolkien said about those 70s, like the 1960s, early 70s movie attempts up with Rings of Power, like as if he predicted the problem, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt, what do you got coming up?
I'll be doing hopefully before episode 8 comes out.
I can't hear you.
Hopefully before episode 8 comes out, I'll have my I do. So what I do for Wheel of Prime, I should say, and I'm going to do for Rings of Prime, although I might wind up being 3 videos, is I do like a reaction where I just record one of my reactions, edit it down, so I get rid of the cursing and just make my comments. So the 1 hour video is like maybe a 5 to 10 minute video, and then I'll do a short review because a lot of guys are doing these half an hour, which are more thorough. And Wheel of Time is not in my top like tier of literature, so to speak. I love it. It's like in tier 3 to me. But I'm more of a Robert.
What's in tier 1? I'm curious.
Lord of the Rings, Elfstone, Shannara, a book called Hellspark by Janet Kagan. It's the only book she ever wrote. It's a science fiction novel.
What is it called again? Hellspark?
Hellspark, one word.
Hellspark. I don't think I've heard of this one.
It's an interesting exploration about artificial intelligence and sapiens.
1988 published. Okay.
Yeah, it's the only book she ever wrote. It's the only fiction book she ever wrote.
Okay.
Then there's a lot of there's probably a couple other things. I mean, Wheel of Time would have probably been like tier 2 if Robert Jordan had finished it himself. I'm down on the Sanderson books. You know what I mean?
What do you mean you're down on the Sanderson books?
I think he didn't do a good enough job finishing Robert Jordan's work, to put it bluntly.
I mean, I was listening to Sanderson talking about it. Do you think he was still the best person to finish?
No.
That? What do you think would have been a better?
Well, I'll tell you, Tad Williams of the authors who were alive at the time would have been the best possible person. I don't think they ever gave the list of every person who said no to it, but around the time they were looking for a writer from Tor Books to finish Wheel of Time, a whole bunch of writers came out and said that they would never let anyone finish their work. Like Martin said that, Ted Williams said that, a couple other guys said that. And the impression we got was those are the guys they were asking if they could finish the work or be involved and finish it. So Tad Williams, if you ever read his Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy or his Other Lands or the Shadow something books, he's a very similar writer to Robert Jordan, and I think he would have been the perfect guy to finish Wheel of Time. You know, he knows how to tell an epic tale. He knows how to, finish subplots very well. You know what I mean? But like they're saying, you should always leave them wanting more rather than wishing they had gone away. You know what I mean? So he knows how to do that. If you haven't read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, it's a great dark fantasy trilogy.
Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn's a dark fantasy?
Yeah, it's pretty dark setting. Not quite as murdery as Martin's setting, but it's like the term apocalyptic means hope in darkness, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an apocalyptic setting. It's a time of great darkness and hope.
So kind of like them too, because Wheel of Time, Tarmangaden.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like Jordan's book, people don't get this. This is one thing I didn't like about Sanderson's finish to it. Jordan, not that it's dark fiction or whatever, but the world was pretty messed up when you know what I mean. Like most of the people, even those who like didn't kill the guys, I thought they were witches who served the dark. If you listen to the lay people talking, people were like isolationists, and the white cloaks were running all over, like questioning people. There was little wars breaking out all over the place. The world, the Aes Sedai themselves were like, what did you call them? A perfectly dysfunctional grouping at one point, Gadfly or something like that. Like the world was out of balance and heading to a bad place, and the Dark One and his people on hand to exploit that. And then so the dragon had to be reborn to bring balance back to the world, so to speak. And I liked how it was very triumphant for Rand and other characters to bit by bit, like when Rand was I'll keep this vague, but it's a little spoilery, but I know you're only on book 7, I think, so I'll keep it vague. Book by book. I thought you were on Path of Daggers.
No, I'm Shadow Rising.
Oh, okay. So I'll keep it vaguer. book by book, Rand does triumphs over the. You've seen 3 of them already, 2 of them already, 3 of them already, right?
Yeah, he in the first one it was against the Trolloc army,
Yeah.
and then the Agenor Balthamol the deal, and then Balsamon, and then of course then I'm curious what they're now. The thing that I'm really curious what's going to happen this week is, I mean, they talk about the fight in the sky, so I just can't imagine Yosha and I forget the actor who plays Ishi. I can't imagine them fighting in the sky.
Fares. He's actually a pretty good actor, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll be honest, like, out of all the characters in that show, I think Ishi's the nicest guy.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. He's a sweet. I call him in my video. I call him a sweet Subaru salesman. He's pretty nice when you get to know him.
The dark ones are just the dark side, just misunderstood. They're just hungry. They just.
That's what I say. That's exactly what I say. But I think the protagonists are more. I think the more. I think that. Like, I would not want to be alone with Rosamund Pike's Moraine. Like, she's just gonna slit my throat, or she's gonna.
She's evil. Evil.
She is evil.
Like Book Moraine was pretty ruthless at times, but she wasn't evil. You know what I mean? Like, she was on a mission, and
like she was willing to kill Varen, like in the Great Hunt, when Varen figured out what was about the whole Dragon Reborn, and she's looking at Siuan. Siuan's looking at her like, I think we might need to end this person.
But they weren't evil. Like, they weren't just throwing innocent people in the path of the Forsaken, like they did with that chick on the horses.
Then the Brain killed that dude in the Terran Ferry, too.
Yeah.
In the season 1, I was like, what the hell is this?
It's so. Where were we? Were we on predictions or so? Anyway, Jordan.
We were talking. You're going to bring up prediction. We're talking about book 4, and
So just to keep it vague, I know you're still reading. I thought you said you were past book 4. But anyway,
no.
Like, Rand goes on a sort of mission, which isn't. You got the sense of it doing it already. Bit by bit, he fights back against the dark, has victories, provable, and along the way, the other characters follow their storyline. Like Nynaeve, of my 2 favorite characters by the end of the series are Rand and Nynaeve equally. Okay. And everyone hates Nynaeve when it starts. Hates her. Like, she's a very annoying character. But Jordan takes her on a journey through those books. So by the time it gets to where Sanderson takes over, I already love her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, so the thing with Nynaeve, though, everybody's irritated by her, but she still has that core and displays that core of, like, she's loyal to a fault to the Two Rivers folk, to the kids.
Well,
she's really caring and compassionate on trying to make sure people are healthy and stuff. And so even when she's irritating, she has that core to her character that is a good, likable core. And Jordan just allows that bit to flourish outside of the irritating concept. So all the characters that people hate, some people detest Egwene, some people detest Tuon, some people detest Elaine. Every single one of them has a core to that character that is an aspirational core that you look at and you're like, that is a quality characteristic for a person to have.
Well, okay. So to give it in my perspective, I view the characters as the tools by which the author tells the story. Okay. So, for example, Siuan, like, there's a phrase I use called ocular sandpaper. I know she has to do important stuff in the story, but every time she appears to do it, it feels like the paper is rubbing on my eyes and dissolving them. Like I hate her so much. I know she has to do stuff that she has to do. Nynaeve, the first book or so, is kind of like that, but evolved by the time, like, the 5th book or so, where I was kind of rooting for her. And then on my reread, I'm rereading the book series for the first time since I finished it when Memory of Light came out, right? So on my reread since the first reread and now a new one, I'm following Nynaeve's story, knowing what happens, and I appreciate her character as a tool, so to speak, a lot more, right? Whereas Siuan, since Jordan didn't finish it, I think he would have fixed that with her and maybe would have went on a later book journey with her, making her less grating. And same thing with the Seanchan. I can't stand the Seanchan. And That's why Matt's not one of my 3 favorite characters, because he got him off the Sunshine storyline. And but I think Jordan might have fixed that had he been the one to finish the series, whereas I think Brandon Sanderson was just checking boxes. You know what I mean? Like he had an outline of things and a bunch of scenes Jordan wrote, and he had to fill in the prose to get there. And like Christopher Tolkien was a master when he did it with Tolkien's work, whereas Sanderson was an amateur when he did it with.
Well, I mean, Christopher Tolkien was part of the. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but Christopher Tolkien was part of the creative process. So,
oh yeah, yep.
I mean, Brand's nothing to do. He never even met Robert Jordan. Well, maybe he met him at a convention, but he never worked with him. So
yeah. But to get specific about the show, I made 2 predictions. Okay. And they were in the White Cloaks general chat. One, the rumor is that Luz Theron is going to make an appearance again in this episode. So what I think is going to happen, and I've said, if you watched it with subtitles, you'll see that occasionally when Rand challenges, he hears a whisper like "kill them, kill them." I said that's the Luz Theron voice in his head that they're alluding to, and he's going to appear finally. Like, because there's no way to show it the way Rand perceives it in the book. You know what I mean? Because in the book, Rand is thinking, and Luz Theron's like a program running in his head, basically. You know, and so they have to actually show Luz Theron talking to Rand in the series to make it work, right? So I think they're going to steal the concept of Al from Quantum Leap, and Luz Theron is going to be like a ghost that only Rand can see. And he's going to be talking to Rand and teach him how to channel and all sorts of stuff while ranting crazily next to him. And Rand's going to be like, oh, and no, everyone's going to look at Rand like he's crazy. You know, I think that's how they're going to try to sell. You're not up to it yet. I know it's spoilery, but as Rand descends a little bit into the issues he's dealing with,
I've heard of Darth Rand. So
yeah,
so they had that bit with Logain and the King of Ghealdan, where they had like that the weird taint face whispering to Logain.
And then they had my other prediction relates to Rand had 2 fights at the end of book 2. Remember that?
Turok and Ishii.
So they're not going to let Rand become a blade master by defeating Turok. They're going to have Nynaeve defeat Turok. She's actually more trained than him at this point.
You think that you seriously think they're going to have Nynaeve fight?
Either she's going to help him defeat him, or she's going to be one that does it. They're not going to let Rand have 2 victories at the end of the game.
They had her, practice fighting with Alana's warders, right? And so if they just had that scene in there for no reason, then they're even worse writers than we thought. Which, I mean, I'm not betting against.
You know what I think is going to happen? I made a joke that it was actually the Sky thing is just going to be Rand and Lanfear fucking. Whoever mounts the other better is going to win or something. But I'm thinking now, just based on how the show is, I think it's just going to be Ishii and Rand just talking in the sky, and then Rand says, I denounce you, and then Ishii's like, and then he falls.
Well, Rand has to declare he's the Dragon Reborn in such a way that everyone hears it. So that's basically the plot line.
You know what I think is going to happen? In season 3, which we are getting, sadly, they're going to do the art, the piece of art that passes around the world of Rand and Balsamon fighting in the sky.
I'm trying to
do that, but all 5 of the Emmons Field characters are going to be
Yeah.
Interesting. You know what's funny is I've been trying to look and see if I could find they talk about that art in the book, but I haven't been able to find something for myself. Like I haven't been able to find like someone there. I don't think any artist tried to recreate that for real. Like I've been trying to find images of the fight in the sky and all that.
There's probably a lot of fan art there.
Did you look on DeviantArt? Is that still a thing?
Yeah. I found one where they look like they're 2 giants instead of fighting in the sky. Looks like 2 like kaiju, like Balsamon and Rand look like kaiju fighting in Falme or something. That's an image. That's an image that I used. Yeah. That's the image I used for my video. Now's the only thing I could really find that could match what it was.
I mean that I can't. That's a full spoiler to say what I was going to say, so I won't say it. But there's that would be a cool painting to have. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Like in my dingy little apartment here, I can't really have all my books out or my comics or whatever. But because I can't, I don't want to. It's small and I can't do built-ins and whatever. But like that would be cool to have eventually a place where I can have an office with my bookshelves and posters and figurines and all my cool stuff that survived the Great Flood on my old house. Just out, just so not even so much you guys could see, so I could see, so I could walk around and like my memory works such that I could pick up any book I've ever read, open it to a random page, and just read it and fully remember what happened before. I do it a lot of stuff, and just the like, or even movies. I could hell a lot of like anything Godzilla. I could watch anywhere in it and do the whole film like dialogue. Yep. Yeah.
I still haven't watched. What's funny is I own it. I still haven't watched all. I've only watched like half of them.
Half of them.
I watched up to King. I watched up to like King Ghidorah, the second one with King Ghidorah.
So there's Invasion of the Astro Monster. Then there's
the one on the moon, or the one. I don't know if they're on the moon or they're on another planet.
They're on another planet. So there's two King Ghidorah films. There's Invasion of the Astro Monster. I believe that's the first one where aliens come to Earth because they need Godzilla and Rodan to kill King Ghidorah, who's wiped out the civilization. What they're really doing is weaponizing Godzilla, King Ghidorah, and Rodan to take over the Earth. Then there's the sequel, the next movie, which is the one with the woman who's the reincarnation of a person from the planet Venus, who's telling about the monsters who are going to destroy the world. And it turns out they translate for Mothra, convincing Rodan and Godzilla to fight for the Earth instead of against it, and humans will leave them alone. And they defeat King Ghidorah and chase him into space.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. I've seen every Godzilla film so many times. I still watch them almost all of them every year to some degree. Even some of the like even Shin Godzilla, which was good but not great. Some cool.
I heard Shin Godzilla put like a fresh, add some fresh ideas.
It has some nice. I really like the visuals with Godzilla as a different take on But I thought it was a little. It could have been a little better film. It was a good film. Could have been better.
Yeah, true.
Now the film that's coming out in November, Godzilla -1, I'm really enthused about. There might be some anti-Americanism in it. The directors are notorious Japanese nationalists, but it's basically a prequel, I guess you would say. Basically, they're restarting the Godzilla series. This takes place before the original one, but like with Godzilla attacking in like after World War II instead of like in 1953 or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So have you seen the trailer for it?
No, I haven't.
I did a little video reacting to the trailer, which Toho tried to claim, of course. So I had to repost it.
Yeah, Toho and Toei are very, very nuts about that type of stuff.
And I'm like, I'm promoting your stupid movie, but
yeah, that's why I haven't done a whole lot of trailer reactions. I mean, because even with last trailer reaction, there was Picard season 3, and it's just like if you're gonna copyright it, then I'm not gonna even bother trying it in the future.
But what I do now and that we do on the questionnaires is I use OBS and I capture the window it's playing in, but then I shrink it down so you can only see like the bottom 1/4, turn off the audio and have the subtitles play. So if you watch one of my reaction videos to Wheel of Prime to see how I set up the video at the bottom, and then every one of those have been no claims at all because they can't see anything or hear anything. It's how a lot of anime reactors do their stuff, So that kind of works for reacting to stuff. But I'm enthused about that. I just got they're over there in a box, but I got my Gamera series on Blu-ray recently. That's been finally have almost all the original Heisei Gamera movie.
What series?
Gamera, the giant turtle.
Oh, Gamora.
Yeah,
okay, Gamera. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have all the Gamera's movies on Blu-ray now. All of Godzilla's movies on Blu-ray that are on Blu-ray. Really enthused about that. But I've got a bunch of other Toho films I got to hunt down. Like those Toho.
I do have Mothra. Actually, I bought Mothra individually, so
Yeah.
I thought I would need to watch Mothra before Godzilla versus Mothra. Not really.
It's a good movie. Then there's the Rebirth of Mothra films from the '90s, which are actually kind of fun in a way. They're more child oriented, but they're kind of fun. Like there's a lot of Toho science fiction films over the decades. Like if you watch Godzilla Final Wars, well, before you get to Godzilla Final Wars, if you haven't seen it yet, ask me to give you the list of films you should watch before to get all the references in it.
Okay.
Watch them because it references so many Japanese Toho science fiction films, Atragon. So honestly, there's even a pro wrestling reference in the film that you don't get if you don't know who the actor is, the way he acts.
Okay.
But like when you get to it, just ask me, and I'll give you a one paragraph of stuff that would be cool about that.
All right, I'll definitely keep that in mind. So yeah, but
those Godzilla films are fun. You guys are in your 30s, right? So when did they stop? Like the way I got exposed to Godzilla films, when I was a kid, up until I was like in my 20s at least, every Thanksgiving Day had King Kong and giant gorilla movies like Mighty Joe Young. Then Friday had like 6 Godzilla films on the Friday after Thanksgiving. And
what channel? What channel?
Syndicated nationwide. Like it was, by me, it was Channel 9, which is syndicated, but it wasn't just like the same thing was syndicated on like nationwide and other syndicated channels. So like they were filling. It was like a Thanksgiving programming block of monster movies that they put that. Like people in California know what I'm talking about from that time period. You know what I mean? Even though I'm from New Jersey, because apparently some company would just buy up those slots on the syndicated channels because they knew the kids were home for the holidays and loved the monster movies. So that's how I got exposed to Godzilla and Kong, and then of course obviously, Saturday and Sunday when I was a kid were Saturday on Channel 11 was Kung Fu Theater, Kung Fu Action Hours, Godzilla Hours, so from like 1 to like 9. Then Channel 5 had 5 o'clock had Hong Kong Action Theater, then Movie of the Week, which was a monster movie, but it could be anything. And Channel 9 at 8 o'clock had the $1 Million Movie, which was always an American monster movie, right? And then Sunday afternoon had the All Out Action Afternoon, which was like 4 straight action films, which could be Hong Kong action or American action, like Chuck Norris movies or whatever. So you guys miss out on syndicated channels so much. Like I'm watching on my Plex media player. I have broadcast channels, and all of the you know how like the broadcast channels got when they gave them HD channels for the upgrade, that was so much bandwidth that they could never fill it with HD content. So they made sub channels like 5.1 and 5.2 that they would just broadcast their libraries. Tonight, on channel 5.2, which is Fox's local affiliate, they were broadcasting all the Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula films.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, you guys are kids, so you have all cable and streaming and whatever. I know you're in your 30s, but
we didn't. We didn't have a TV in the house until I was like 7 or 8. So we would rent a projector from the library.
Oh wow!
With some of the tapes and play them on the white wall. And we never got any sort of cable service until the 2000s when I was in high school and we got satellite. That's when
cable spread nationwide, was around the year 1995 to 2000. Jersey City, where I used to live, didn't have legal cable until I want to say 1993 or something like that.
But yeah, so my childhood was not really that centered around film and TV. It was more centered around books and stuff.
Oh, that's great. I'm not saying you were
Silmarillion at 9.
Yeah. Oh, you late bloomer, you. It's like all those syndicated channels, which for like late, like when I was till 9 or 10. I'd be up at 4 in the morning. My grandmother always kept me up late to watch all sorts of stuff. She's the one who got me into like. If you look at my videos, there's a picture of an older. She's younger, but she's an older woman. Bottom right corner of a woman looking up at all the stuff I have on my screen, like the monsters and whatever. That's my grandmother. My grandmother, she because she taught me more than school anyway. I knew how to do math, like multiplication by the time I was 5 because of her. Same thing while I was reading adult levels when I was 5 because of my grandmother. So she would keep me home from school. Like, don't go to school tomorrow. We're going to stay up tonight and watch Yor the Hunter from the Future. Which is
That's awesome.
Or she's like, Matt, you're not going to school tomorrow. Tonight, The Exorcist is premiering on national TV. We have to watch it. And my mother was like, "You can't want to get out of my house and don't come back." To my mother.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, she was awesome.
And you're familiar with, and I forgot to bring this up in my Planet of the Apes retrospective. That's fucking idiot of me. The Army of the Apes. You said you're familiar with Army of the Apes.
I found a copy of it. Yeah.
So it was actually, I think it was originally like a 26 episode series, like half an hour, I think, and then they made a compilation movie, and Sandy Frank, I think, dubbed it.
I don't know about 26 episodes, but it sounds about right that it was a TV show that got scrunched into a movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if the series is available. I think the entire movie is available on YouTube or something.
Well, I found it a better copy than the YouTube one if you ever want to see it.
Yeah, so Gadfly, the Japanese made their version of Planet of the Apes, and it's called Army of the Apes, and it looks so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's like your typical Japanese show. Like think like Tokusatsu with a little bit of just with people in costume, and I don't remember if the makeup was any good. I don't know. I'd have to watch it.
It wasn't any good.
No, it wasn't. Okay.
But that was the thing with the Japanese. You remember the Japanese Spider-Man? Anyone ever see that?
I heard about it. He has a giant robot.
Yeah,
this was late 70s.
Yeah, or
and that's where they got the idea for Power Rangers to use the giant mech.
Yeah, the Super Sentai. Yep.
Yeah.
So those the Japanese, like the stuff they would do, like there was a Japanese RoboCop TV series in the 90s. It was syndicated here.
And I did not know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like some of the stuff in,
So I remember there was a RoboCop cartoon. So when I saw the actual movie, I was surprised how violent it was. And I was a kid. I think I was 6 years old when I first saw RoboCop. Well, not the extended version where what's his name gets shot up really well by
5 minutes of just endless machine gun.
Yeah, I'm just like.
There was a period where they created a cartoon for like just about everything.
The 80s were great for Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos, Rambo, the Force of Freedom cartoon, the A-Team cartoon,
the real Ghostbusters.
That was J. Michael Straczynski was involved in that.
I didn't know that until J. Michael Straczynski himself said he was involved. He wrote it, and he said he did something that I wish they do nowadays. He familiarized himself with the movies.
The real Ghostbusters cartoon was awesome.
I saw that before I saw the movies.
Yeah,
as a kid.
It's better than the Ghostbusters sequels. I'll put it that way.
Even better than Ghostbusters 2?
I have some issues with Ghostbusters 2. Like, I don't know. Like I mean,
I like Ghostbusters 2.
I like it. I just like how much I like something depending on whether I ever want to watch it again and how often I want to watch it again. Like I'll rewatch Ghostbusters every 10 years or so and enjoy it. But Ghostbusters 2, I have not felt compelled to rewatch it since like, I don't know, when did it come out in the 90s? So like
89. It's 5 years later.
Like in the last 20 years, I've not felt compelled to rewatch Ghostbusters 2. But I watched Ghostbusters like 2 or 3 times since then.
You're not a big fan of them playing Jackie Wilson music and the Statue of Liberty all slimed up and everybody's happy. And
I don't like the ending of that with the Statue of Liberty.
Vigo the Carpathian.
Maybe because I felt they were repeating certain ground or something.
The giant mecha Statue of Liberty. Yeah.
I like Ghostbusters Aftermath more than Ghostbusters 2 because I thought the ending was great. It was a little slow getting there, but I thought they did the nostalgia ending the right way. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't need a sequel. I know they're planning on a sequel. They don't need a sequel. Like Ghostbusters Afterlife took away the bad taste of Fem Ghostbusters 2015 or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Afterlife just didn't feel like a Ghostbusters film. It felt more like, I mean, because you think Ghostbusters, you think, it's a comedy. It takes place in New York City, and there's ghosts.
Well, the original Ghostbusters wasn't a kids movie, whereas this was a kids movie. So I think some of the humor.
The same with Ghostbusters too. Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, it was basically a Bill Murray. It was originally supposed to be a John Belushi comedy, but it ended up being a Bill Murray. It was written for Bill Murray.
Yeah. So because Belushi died, and it was basically an extended Saturday Night Live skit, Ghostbusters, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so, but I thought Aftermath brought us back to Afterlife, to a better place, a better ending for the characters, and a sort of sense that what the Ghostbusters did mattered. You know what I mean? Whereas that's one thing about 2 that felt to me like, because it was a sort of like what the Ghostbusters did in the first film. With 2, it didn't feel like what they did, but like getting all
there wasn't any impact. There wasn't really any impact. The city just turned on them or forgot or
they
something.
fought the giant Marshmallow Man marching across the city.
Marshmallow Man. Yeah.
Who in the cartoon becomes a hero. I love the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in the cartoon.
Well, along with Grimer becomes a staple character. Yeah.
So is the cartoon like a follow up to the movie? I forget. Is
the first movie?
Okay, because I think the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters, came out before Ghostbusters 2, right? In the mid '80s.
I think they started making it before. I don't remember what year it was released. It's like Transformers, the movie from '86. They started making it before the second season of the Transformers.
Because I believe the movie Transformers movie takes place in between seasons 2 and 3 of Transformers.
Well, sort of. Basically, there wasn't plans to make a Transformers season 3 until Transformers the movie was popular. Because so then they made it, and it kind of. Then there was season 3.5, which was the Return of Optimus Prime. No, which was the Power Masters. Then the Return of Optimus Prime. And then it continued in Japan for years. There's like 4 more Transformers series in Japan before they started the American series. But like they basically, obviously, they wanted to reboot it, kill all the toys off to make more toys, right? But they started making that film before they fully fleshed out the Dinobots and the Aerial Bots and who Omega Supreme was and all that in the first and second season. So that's why people ask, well, where were all the other combiners? Why did Optimus Prime think the Dinobots could beat Devastator? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Optimus Prime soloed Devastator on his own at one point, which is fine because Optimus Prime. But and then where was Omega Supreme? And Fortress Maximus? Because if you look at Autobot City, that's Fortress Maximus. If you look at the shape of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they clearly knew what was going on in the show. But they started the movie so early. It's like Naruto the Last. They had to film that movie started moving so far before the end of the show, the anime, I should say, because the manga was over by then. That they didn't know, like they had to hide things that they were going to put in the show at the end. So they didn't know. Kishimoto kept some details close to the vest. So Naruto the Last movie kind of conflicts with some of the stuff at the end of Naruto the anime, but not so much the manga. It's,
I see.
Yeah. Because those animation projects take a long time. I mean, it's the reality of it,
Yeah.
The good ones anyway.
So Gadfly, what do you got going on? Watching anything or reading anything?
Not much. Today has been an academic day, so I've been going through Les Alchimistes Grecs.
What was it called?
Les Alchimistes Grecs.
Les Alchimistes Grecs.
Yes, it's the Greek alchemists in French, and it's an academic text. So as you can see here on the one side, it's Greek text.
Oh, I see.
The Greek text of Zosimus of Panopoulos, and on the other side is the French translation.
Oh. So what is? I don't know anything about Greek alchemy. What does that usually entail? I know that's probably is a loaded question right there.
Well, it depends on which era you're talking about. The stuff I look at is, or the person I look at is the first Greek alchemists who we have surviving text for. So there could be some earlier ones, but he's the only one that we have actual evidence of existing. So all the other ones could be apocryphal individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the first guy who he married the technical craft of statuary and gold making of the Egyptians with Greek philosophy and Christian Gnosticism. And that's the foundation of what Western alchemy is. And then it kind of branches off into two groups from there. The Arabic stuff that is based off of Zosimus and a handful of others after him. And then that re-enters Europe. And then you have the Zosimus stuff that stayed in the Byzantine Empire. And then during the Crusades, those texts also enter Europe. So you have these in Europe. You have these two kind of competing Greek alchemical thought processes: the Arabic one and the Greek. So the Greek Arabic and the Greek Greek.
Okay.
And then that kind of melds into one, which becomes alchemy. And then later on, after Isaac Newton performs the last series of proper alchemical experiments, alchemy becomes a fully romanticized mystical thing, and they start incorporating a lot of Indian alchemical and Asian alchemical things into it, and it becomes even more fantastical. Yeah. So this guy's the first alchemist in the Western tradition, and he's grossly understudied.
What was his name again?
Zosimus.
Zosimus.
There's two Zosimoses in history. One is a historian, one is an alchemist, which makes it very frustrating because if you search up Zosimus on any database, you get a massive amount of historical content or stuff from the historian, as opposed to the alchemy stuff. So that's what I've been doing today.
It seems pretty fascinating because, like, I remember reading. It's been a while, but I remember that the early concept of the scientific method and empirical work kind of came from some alchemy. But it's kind of like when Newton, like when they began separating the physical research work from the previous metaphysical construct, which was obviously wrong, earth, fire, and water, and all whatever the tradition was, and started applying more rational, scientific, mathematics and calculus, and it was an interesting transformation. That's the best way to put it.
Newton wasn't actually preferred the mystical alchemy stuff to the science stuff, and he thought the mystical alchemy stuff was correct. And the science stuff he actually did separately as a way to get one up on people that he didn't like. So he came up with calculus to piss off people in the Royal Academy.
Oh yeah.
But he after his alchemy experiments failed, he stopped doing all science stuff whatsoever, and then went to reform the Mint, and that's where he got his knighthood from.
Yeah, I'm not saying Newton particularly. I'm saying right around when he was doing his work, because he did so much scientifically, people looked at his body of work, and the chemist said, "Wait a minute, maybe there's something to the methodologies and whatever," and they extracted some of it out of it. The sort of
concept of experimental science is a really ancient one
Yeah.
within the Greek philosophical tradition. And then it goes into a more theoretical mode, and then it branches out, and some do more practical stuff and some do more theoretical stuff. But usually the theoretical stuff works out more or becomes more influential because the people doing that are better rhetoricians. But yeah, so this guy, I'm of the firm belief, and one of the things I want to do potentially do a dissertation on is the reading his alchemical works as a ethical philosophy, because
you're talking about Zosimus.
Yeah, because that's what I think his alchemy is, more so than any actual mystical stuff. I think the alchemical physical experimentation process is supposed to be something that is people are supposed to examine as an example of what they're supposed to do internally to themselves, because the whole goal of this alchemy is to perfect one's soul. It's not about creating gold. It's not about, like the philosopher's stone. That stuff comes later. This is all about internalizing and making one's soul perfect, or as perfect as a human soul can become.
What about I'm going to bring up the anime Full Metal Alchemist? What about the stuff that's in that show? The diagram, the alchemy circle, I believe, that they draw, and the law. I forget what the law was. For everything that you get, you have to give or something.
Equivalent return or something like
equivalent return. So I'm that's interesting that the scientific method is older than I thought it was.
Well, yeah, it's things in human history. You'll find that 90% of our so-called genius is something that percolates for centuries or more, and then very rarely you'll get that one dude who comes up with something in an instant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the one that invents the wheel.
Yeah.
So imagery is highly important to the alchemical work of Zosimus, but these are the sort of imageries that a person is looking at. There are pictures that are all sorts of symbological elements to them. See if we can get another really good clear picture. But you can see it's not.
Those look like halos around them.
Yeah.
Kind of like an icon, like an Orthodox icon type of deal.
Yeah, these are actually Islamic ones. But sometimes you can see, like in this one, maybe you can see the circles on top of the two people's heads.
Yeah, I see them.
One is gold, one is silver.
Yeah.
So one is the sun and one is the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of symbological things to it, rather than a sort of magical pentagram diagram.
Yeah.
Because the key of these things is you're supposed to reflect on them. You're supposed to look at the imagery and reflect on them and think on them and contemplate the symbology of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that alchemy stuff that they're showing in Full Metal Alchemist is so much more the Eastern alchemy stuff.
Okay.
Like the Chinese based stuff, which the Chinese elements are wood, gold. It's either gold or metal. So wood, gold, or metal, fire, water. I don't think it's air, but there's two others. So they have like 6 elements, I believe,
mm-hmm.
in the Asian sphere, as opposed to the Western sphere, which is fire, water, earth, air. But even then, in the Western sphere, the fire, water, earth, and air are actually, those elements are embodiments of characteristics.
Okay.
So fire is hot and dry.
Mm-hmm.
Earth is dry and wet. Water is cold and wet. Air is cold and dry.
Was it Aristotle or it's been a while. With the elements and his theory of
Sounds like something Aristotle would.
The basis of the Earth.
I don't know if he talked about it or like I don't know if he's the one who came up with it or he just ran with like someone else's ideas.
Aristotle was very critical of the earlier mode, the elemental modes of explaining the world. Those were pre-Socratic stuff.
Yeah. I remember him pulling it up. He had a whole cause and effect thing.
For Aristotle, it was the primary concern for creation is movement. So you have things that have what's called natural attraction, and that's their movement. So the stone naturally falls to the ground because that's its natural attraction.
And that's what he transformed the elements into, that sort of attraction quality, like their elemental nature was what the
Aristotle was incredibly against the elemental stuff.
No, I agree. I'm saying his interpretation of it, I think, was he saw those elements. He used those to say that's how things attracted, like fire to something or whatever. It's something.
No, that wasn't Aristotle. He was an atomist in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Meaning everything is down to a small uncuttable thing. That's what atom means. Yeah. Atomos. A meaning un and tomos cuttable. But so Aristotle was just like, no, everything is made up of all these different types of things. So there's no 4 elemental basis that construct them all. So but yeah, so once again, his whole stuff was movement. So there was the natural attraction of the laws of the universe, so to speak. But then you had the souls of things, which were things that could move in and of themselves. And so you had the vegetative soul, which was a movement of oneself in terms of growing. So the vegetative soul is something that can grow. Then you have the animalistic soul, which is something that can perambulate, so it can move around. And then you have the human soul, which is something that can move around in abstract thought. And so if you're an animal, you have a vegetative soul and an animalistic soul. If you're a human, you have a vegetative soul, an animalistic soul, and a human soul.
What makes a vegetative soul again?
It just grows.
Okay. And animalistic soul moves?
It can move around, yeah.
And then you said the human soul is abstract, thinks. Okay.
Interesting. So
I've never studied any of this shit, so this is kind of going a little bit over my head. I'm trying to understand.
You know how much of a pack rat I am? I was trying to. I couldn't remember what I took. One of my college classes. One of my electives was on philosophy, and I found I did a couple of papers on Aristotle. I'm skimming through them. But I never throw anything away. You never throw anything away. You know, I had to dig down to like 15 sub menus, but there it was. Yeah.
Wow, it's been almost 3 hours. Thank you guys for joining me. This was just I wanted to see if anyone wanted to come on that wasn't able to come on last week and everything. So I might do another one, see if more people want to come. I probably should have done these more often.
Do 3, right? 1 for each 1,000.
Do 42 of them. Who gets the reference?
But never ask why, because the question cannot exist in the same universe.
Well, blame those damn Zygons.
But yeah, gentlemen, thank you for being on with me. I'm getting tired myself. Chillporials are definitely going to continue. Once I get almost every member, or at least people who can stream and all that, then I'll probably reach out to other content creators, see if I want to see if they're interested in everything. So it's cool getting new people on. Like, it was awesome talking to Feanor on Friday, And Gadfly, thanks for being there and kind of correcting us in our
4-hour Tolkien discussion. Yeah, of course I'm going to be there.
4 hours. I was actually listening to it today. We talked. We had a little bit of Song of Ice and Fire, a little bit of Star Wars, and I forget what there was something else we were talking about. And then it came back to Tolkien's, and Tolkien was pretty much mostly Tolkien's conversation. So, but yeah, like it's cool when you invite someone on for the first time. And I've had he's not the first one, but I've had people, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but like, it's cool when you bring someone on, you have a conversation, and they're really happy. Like after the stream, he goes on Twitter and says, "This was an awesome stream. Everybody should check out Incorporeal Lifeform and all that." And I was just like, "Damn!" I'm like, I was just being myself. I was just being my usual friendly. Be my usual friendly self, but it was really uplifting to have that effect and to have that. So
everybody loves talking about things that they really enjoy.
Yeah, and like, so when I bring people on, I'm not going to if I bring people on, like, well, Matt, you could talk about practically anything, but like, I'm not going to have like, for instance. I'm not going to have Steve talk about Legend of the Galactic Heroes because he won't watch it, even though I've recommended it because it's in Japanese. But hey, and I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask Pips to talk about video games because he doesn't play video games. So like, I try to, like, when it comes to, like, having planning streams, like, I have to, like, plan the subject matter that fits the interests of the creator. So like with Gadfly, I mean, you like a whole bunch of things, so I could probably easily talk about, like, obviously, like anime, and you like, you talk about the classics and everything. Yeah, it's just that type of deal. So yeah, so the Chillporials are definitely going to continue. I usually do them weekly. I might do maybe depending on the week, but now that time, season 2 of Serial Horror Chats is going to be underway. So I actually, there's a few content creators who I've never done anything with that I actually there's 2 that I'm going to be doing stuff for the first time with for them. There's 2 that are going to be returning. So me and Alex are in a couple of weeks are going to do The Exorcist. Alex Whitecloaks. I'm going to get Fanzine. We're going to do American Werewolf in London. And then I'm going to get, for the first time, we have Pops. And we're going to be talking about the original Carrie movie from the 70s. And Dread Roberts, we're going to be talking about The Fly. So so this Friday, Chillporial is going to be with DJ Ronnie G, and then Saturday is going to be the first episode of season 2 of Serial Horror Chats, and it's going to feature Dread Roberts, and we're going to be talking about The Fly, 1986.
After you watch The Exorcist, bro, most of the movie sequels are kind of meh, but the TV show from about 10 years ago, the 2 seasons of it, it's arguably the best TV show ever done.
The Exorcist. You're talking about the one that came out a few years ago?
I think it was about 10 years ago now.
Was it 10 years ago? Because I know they came out like a whole bunch of shows. That they came out with a Lethal Weapon show on Fox. I think they came out with an Exorcist show on Fox.
The Exorcist, it would have been around that time, yeah. But The Exorcist, I mean, the first season was really good, and it's kind of a sequel. I have to spoil it, I guess. It's kind of a sequel to the first movie. The second season, the dude who played, the guy should have won the Golden Globe for his portrayal of the main character in that season. He's such a good Andy something, or Andy Cho. You've seen him in a lot of stuff. He played like in Space Above and Beyond and other stuff. But after you watch the movie, The Exorcist, go watch the TV show. It's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, The Exorcist. I've only seen the first Exorcist. I heard Exorcist 2 is trash. That one with Richard Burton is the Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Heard that one was garbage. I heard nothing but good things about Exorcist 3, though. William Peter Blatty's Exorcist 3.
It's okay if you consider it not a sequel to the original movie.
Okay, so more like a thematic.
Like a sequel in spirit, but just like, don't think of it as a sequel. Even though yes, there will be tie-ins to the first movie, that weaken the story that's being told. So
yeah, true. But and I think William Peter Blatty actually didn't he write that one, Exorcist 3? That's why it's called William Peter Blatty's.
Yeah, I think he
Exorcist.
wrote it. I think he wrote the book it was based. I've only ever read The Exorcist by him, so I can't tell you what else he wrote. Although The Exorcist is a great book, it's better than the movie.
Really? Oh, so you think the book's better than the movie?
I would say 9 out of 10 times the book is better than the movie. So even when it's a great movie,
because I'm curious. I'm curious how good of a writer William. I've never read William Peter Blatty, so I don't know.
I only read one book. So for the one book that I read, it was excellent.
Yeah. What else was William Peter Blatty known for? He wrote a movie. I think he directed a movie with what was it? Featuring, I forget, it was like a movie with Nazis. It was supposed to be in a movie. I forget what it was called. What was that one called? I've never seen it. I've heard about it, watched videos about it, but I've never actually seen it.
Now you got me hitting up the Google. I can't not know something. If I don't know it, I have to know it. You know what I mean?
You gotta know it. Yeah, Matt. That's why you're unbearable. That's why Matt. That's why you're unbearable.
Okay, The Ninth Configuration. So that was a novel of his. He turned into a movie, I think. That was his directorial.
The Ninth Configuration, and that's what. Yeah, it was 1980. Okay, 1980.
Published in 1970. It came out in 1980, and that was his directorial debut. It won the Golden Globe for Best Screenplay, and it was nominated for Best Picture.
Interesting. So this is a psychological drama film.
He's only written like 10 books. So maybe that. So I think Legion was the basis for Exorcist 3. His book Legion.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe I read 2 books. I think I read Legion as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So yeah, he wrote Exorcist 3, and then he wrote novels in the late 2000s too. So it's shit. I, Billy Shakespeare, The Exorcist, Legion, Elsewhere, Demeter, Crazy, Twinkle Twinkle, Killer Kane, Demons 5, Exorcist Nothing. I don't know what that is. I guess I don't know. Oh well. Okay, that's gonna be an interesting thing to check out. So okay, I've seen A Shot in the Dark. He was a screenwriter on that one. Shot in the Dark, the Peter Sellers.
Yeah, it's the second Pink Panther film.
I mean, what's funny is it doesn't no mention of the Pink Panther whatsoever. It's just features Inspector Clouseau, and it's actually I actually really like that. That was actually that was the first movie where Clouseau has this really thick French. Peter Sellers does a really thick French accent and everything, and then that carried into the films that he did in the 70s. So,
I think
it was the introduction of Cato, the introduction of Inspector Dreyfus, the one that hates Clouseau so much. His boss hates him so much that he goes insane over him, like he lives rent free in his head and all that. So, and then
it's really the Inspector Clouseau series of films, but we call it the Pink Panther because of the first movie.
You have a room. A what? You have a room.
Because of the cartoon.
Remember you mean cartoon? A room. That's what I said, you idiot.
Remember the Pink Panther cartoon that came out?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Dun, dun,
Henry Mancini.
Yeah.
Hey, and then there's one where he destroys a piano. I think it's the third one. The Pink Panther strikes again. He's like, he accidentally. I don't know if he accidentally destroys a piano or he purposefully destroys a piano.
His hand stuck in a gauntlet that's attached to a flail, right? A mace or something.
That was a priceless Steinway. Not anymore.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch these films, man.
Bastard. Oh, that movie.
When he and Dreyfus are getting kooky on the knockout gas for when he has to invade the castle pretending to be the dentist.
Yeah. Oh my god, that movie. That Pink Panther Strikes Again. I was like, you're like he has a freaking space. He has like a giant Dreyfus is like a Bond villain, and he has like this laser, and he gets himself like vaporized by the laser in the movie. Like you see him wink, and that's the end of him. But then the next movie just comes back because hey, is there continuity in this? No. As far as we know, it was that whole movie was in his head, was in Inspector Dreyfus's head the whole time. Yeah. So we got Roman the Empire. What's up, Roman? it's an honor. It's an honor to see you in the in the chat. Nice.
Oh,
Thanks.
speaking of which, Roman Empire, in 2 weeks, I'll be on his show. We're going to go over the movie The Prophecy with Christopher Walken. Not the mutant bear one from the 70s, which was pretty good too.
Is that the one where he plays an angel?
Yes, he plays Angel Gabriel.
I'm playing Angel Gabriel. I'm Angel Gabriel from the East Coast. Okay, I can't do a good Christopher Walken.
I can't do people.
You know who does a great Christopher Walken? I forgot to call him out and shout him out. Cardinal Sin, who passed away. I think was it last week or a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
So yeah. If you watch some of his early video, he does a flawless Christopher Walken. So you go to his channel, look up Cardinal Sin, Christopher Walken. Guy's brilliant. So, yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest, I nearly had him for Serial Horror Chat last year. I had to cancel because I was playing too many streams. And there were points where he invited me on because he would do a midnight a midnight stream or something. And the thing is, I don't mind it, but I don't mind people inviting me for stuff. But I usually when people just invite me out of the blue, I just tend to not. I usually it's just too out of left field for me, and I usually always have other stuff to do. So, but yeah, rest in peace, Cardinal Sin. It's a shame I didn't get to stream with you. So, but rest in peace. Hopefully you have all the nerdy resources to watch all the good shit
on the giant
other side
TV in the sky.
On the other side, yeah, there you go. So, yeah. So, but yeah. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, I think this is it for the. I know I've been saying, this is going to end, but then I don't, and I end up talking about something else.
You keep bringing stuff up, man.
I know. I gotta stop. But yeah, video wise, coming up, I promise to do what does stay corporeal mean? So I'm writing something right now. Like I think I got the Word document.
You never got back to that review of the Lord of the Rings films we were doing.
Oh shit, that's right. Return of the King. What's funny is I should. You know what? Maybe we'll do something like that. Now that I know Feanor, we could definitely get Feanor on too. So
because I'm not a big fan of the extended editions, and I mean I'm being polite when I say it, and so I had never watched the full Return of the Extended Edition ever until for your show. I said I'll watch it for Notorial. I'll take the hit.
How come you? I'm surprised. Usually the extended. I prefer the extended. How come you don't?
All of the deviations from the book that quirk me, but I love the theatrical movies, right? But all of the extended editions take those deviations and make them worse to the point where I can't ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Army of the Undead,
Okay.
Army of the Undead.
That part. So if I remember correctly, in the book, the ghosts or something, they didn't kill anybody. They were just there to off the people off the ships.
He helped them. They helped them liberate the port cities of Gondor, because the Black Númenóreans and the other people, the Umbarians, I think, they were besieging the southern Gondor by sea. So the army of southern Gondor, which at that time was way larger than the army of northern Gondor, was tied up in southern Gondor. That's part of Sauron's plan. So Aragorn took the company of Elrond, which was Elrond's 2 kids and other rangers from Arnor, and the army of the dead went there and liberated the cities. Then the army of the dead was excused because they had satisfied their Weirgild or whatever you want to call it. And then Aragorn took the army of Gondor and the company of Elrond north on the ships, and that was the relieving of the siege. Mm-hmm. But what bothered me more wasn't that they were there; it was the piranha-like part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was very anti-Tolkien. But there was other stuff like Elrond being an asshole, Denethor being Denethor, total character assassination in those movies. Okay, made worse by the. So
remember, recently reading, Lord of the Rings with the White Cloaks, and I have to admit I didn't finish it. I still have some chapters. But the stuff about Denethor was very interesting because Denethor was actually very, very, very like they were very, very careful what they said to Denethor. Like he was
okay. So I'll explain briefly. So the Palantiri were gifted by the elves to Irindil's dad, what was his name? Menendil or whatever. He was the last lord of Andui, who were the elf friends who remained on Numenor. And they gave them the Palantiri so they could talk to the elves on the island off of the coast of Valinor, and so they could communicate in secret to protect themselves from being persecuted, right? So the Palantiri are tied to the line of Irindil, okay? So only Irindil's descendants, the kings, can use them properly, but they can authorize others of pure blood to use them.
Mhm.
So the line of stewards were authorized by the line of kings to use them, and then the stewards took over. So Denethor was using the Palantiri to help him in the war against Sauron, because Sauron was attacking him for hundreds of years or whatever, right? And eventually Sauron got a hold of a Palantir, which we know about, right? The one from Minas Morgul, basically. And Denethor contested wills with him. Denethor, everyone else who contested wills through the Palantiri basically were mind controlled or corrupted by Sauron. Okay. Denethor, because he was an authorized user of the Palantiri, plus his own phenomenal character, was able to not be corrupted. He was broken and depressed by it, but he wasn't corrupted. It's a very, very significant thing.
It wasn't Sauron's will that broke Denethor. It was the information that he received, Boromir's death and that stuff that was causing him distress and broke him.
He was left weakened by contesting wills with Sauron, but due to his strong will, and because he's a pure-blood Númenórean, and the protection of the Palantiri being an author, because Sauron is not an authorized user. He can only use him because of his phenomenal willpower.
What makes an authorized user an authorized user?
They're tied to the line of Irindil, so only the line of king can authorize use of them.
Oh, okay.
It's a magic tied. It's a power tied into them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's more of like a genetic type of
I guess you
deal.
can think of it that way. It's like, remember we talked earlier about the unseen world, and mortal men can only get access to the unseen world through artifacts like the Palantiri.
Yeah.
Well, those artifacts were tied to the line of Irindil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So
yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, just like I said, the extended editions, especially the I guess you would say the second and third one, like the Elves at Helm's Deep, that elf force of 500. That's probably the entire army of Lothlorien at that point. There aren't that many elves left. Outside of Mirkwood, there aren't a lot of elves left in Middle Earth at that point. That's why they couldn't participate in the war.
So Admiralty says here, Denethor didn't have the right to use the Palantir, which works on will. That's what breaks him. He's already crazy when he sends Boromir to Rivendell.
He didn't send Boromir to Rivendell. Boromir and Faramir received the prophecy, most likely from Ulmo, and because they were leading Army of the North, and one of them said, "I need to interpret this," so they went to Rivendell for advice interpreting the prophecy. That's how Boromir was in Rivendell.
That's how it happens in the book. All right.
Yeah,
the movie he gets sent.
Yeah, the movie gets sent, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. It's interesting, talking to people like someone on X. I responded to someone on X on X or Twitter said that Lord of the Rings is a poor adaptation. I was like, really? I was just like, wow, really? And some people feel that way.
Christopher Tolkien called it a bastardization of his father's work, and that it was turned into a generic action film for
teenagers.
For 14 to 26-year-olds.
Yeah.
Well, Christopher, like his father, is not a big fan of visual arts, I guess, in movies. I respect their opinion.
I could see that. I mean, they came from a very different era, obviously. So, where they didn't. I mean, it became a thing after. It became a thing of the product of the technology that's
there's
Professor Tolkien.
So much in the philosophy and the theology and all that sort of stuff in the books that the visual medium can't really present as well, and eliminating certain things like Tom Bombadil eliminates certain core aspects of those world building components that are part of the whole story. So it would be very much like seeing your most precious video being taken and having slices taken out of it that are key elements to that video as a whole, and then being put together as a new whole item. So,
oh yeah, my favorite Lord of the Rings adaptation is still Ralph Bakashi's animated. So, yeah. Oh no, Admiral Teague, I love the theatrical versions of the movies. You know what I mean? I respect them. Jackson was he did a spiritual and in spirit adaptation, but the films had flaws. I mean, it annoyed me that Aragorn wasn't carrying Narsil around, like the whole scene with Narsil on a pedestal or whatever. You know what I mean? In Rivendell.
I forget what did he name the sword after?
Anduril.
What was it called?
Anduril.
Anduril. Yeah.
And
of course, he doesn't go whenever he charges. He doesn't go Elendil. You know, I'm like,
Narsil was reforged right then and there into Anduril for the quest of the Company of the Ring, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said, Elrond wasn't an asshole. That was another irk.
So he was an asshole in the
in the book, he was happy Arwen was marrying Aragorn. He just wanted them to wait until after the war.
So that whole thing with like them leaving and him telling her to come with or something, that was a movie only. Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
Had Aragorn died in the war, she would have left with him. Obviously, I mean,
yeah,
she's not going to stay there and let Sauron kill her. You know what I mean? But
exactly, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
so.
But and that whole weird thing with her getting sick and dying, and I mean, you know, I'm still irked that Glorfindel wasn't in the movie. That bothers me to this day.
I hate that pronunciation, Glorfindel.
I'm not going to go Glorfindel. I'm not going to do it. I love Tolkien, but I'm not going to the way he pronounces it.
I still prefer Glorfindel with the E. Now, if it was Glorfindel, it would be with an A or an I or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I hate Glorfindel.
But he was not in the movie, and he should have been. You know.
When I first read this, and I think I might have said this on the White Cloak stream, I was disappointed initially that Glorfindel was not. Instead of Glorfindel going with them, I was hoping he'd be part of the party. Instead, I'm like, who's this Legolas guy? Like, I was hoping like Glorfindel would go with them, and they'd, him and Aragorn, and they'd be the powerhouse, and then.
Admiral Teague, he didn't have to wield the sword; he should have carried it. Because book Aragorn, I understand why Jackson changed Aragorn's storyline. Because Aragorn knew he was going to be the king, born to be the king. He was raised that way by Elrond. There was no like him accepting being the king like he was in the movies. I get that Jackson changed it to give Aragorn a story arc. That's fine. But if he had just carried the sword, and that would have, and used another sword to fight with, but just carried it. And then maybe someone could have said, instead of seeing Narsil and its fragments on a pedestal, maybe Boromir could have said, "Oh, why?" Like, because even though Boromir in the book knew who he was, could have said, "Why are you carrying the fragment of Narsil?" And then whatever. But they could have done different. It just irked me that he wasn't carrying it. But again, it's one of those little things. I could overlook that in the theatrical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So, all right, well, this is it for sure now. So. Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. Chat, thank you for Admiral T. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. I hope let's keep saving Star Trek alive. Roman, Donnie, trying to think. No, Salty was here earlier. Mark, thanks for coming on the panel with us. And yeah, everybody else, have a good night and stay nerporial. And I'll try to make that what does stay nerporial mean? So it's going to be a follow up to my what does it mean to be nerporial type of video, which I made 2 years ago. So I'll have to rewatch it, and it's your typical platitudes. Be good to each other, blah blah blah. Nothing unusual. So, but okay, everybody, take care. Have a good night.